Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Joins the World of Resident Evil Part 1. Before we start, please go support Angel Gonzalez 753 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. The story tells us about Issei Hyoudou, the oppai, the hero of children and the supernatural world itself, but all that changed after the battle against the trihexa, since after the battle our protagonist fell into a coma for 3 months, long enough for the leaders to take credit for defeating the beast, in addition to the women who claimed to love him, abandoned him for his rival, except Rias, Koneko. Kuroka and Ross, and as a nail in the coffin, they exiled him from all factions, leaving him to his fate in the human world, just in time to be part of the zombie apocalypse. Clarifications. Issei still has Draigg. It will be based on video games. Open characters that are still alive when in the video games they are dead. Most known viruses will be covered, as well as those that are not. Zombie world. We see a city in the rain, completely in ruins and without any sign of life, while a young man passed by on his motorcycle, while being followed by strange creatures very different from anything seen before. Issei. You'll wonder who I am and why I'm in a ruined city, or maybe you want to know who those cute little friends are that follow me. Well, I'll tell you. My name is Hyoudou Isay, member of the BSAA, an organization in charge of protecting the population that remains from things like that, but you might be wondering, Isay, are you the Securite, the oppai dragon, the idol of children? That's right, that was me. Now that I think about it, that's very stupid. Well, you know about me, right? The perverted boy who became a hero of the supernatural world. Now you'll wonder what happened. Well, that only has one name, trihexa, that's what happened. That cursed creature, the most powerful being in the supernatural world, and what happened, this is the cause of everything. He led the world into chaos. He was not defeated using a forbidden transformation called Diabolo's dragon. With it, I managed to hurt the cursed one, so that it would be sealed again. So what happened, you might wonder? No, well, the excess of energy made me fall into a coma for 3 months, and this also caused Draigg to fall asleep hiding his power. This was taken advantage of by the damn leaders. The beings I trusted took credit for the battle against trihexa, leaving me lying in a hospital bed. But that was not the best part. The best part were the girls, those damn hitches who claimed to love me, left me for that bastard Lucifer, my friend. You already know my face when I woke up and found out about this, but well, as they say, there is always a good side. Well, there was Rias, Koneko, Kuroka and Ross. They stayed by my side, but the happiness will not last forever, and so it is those idiots exiled me from all their factions and locked the girls in the underworld. So my whole life seemed to be going to hell, and that was just the beginning as I decided to restart my life in the United States after all my parents died of natural causes, looking for a way to enter the underworld and rescue my loved ones. Fate took me to Raccoon City, a fairly quiet place, but I had not been there 2 days when a great tragedy began. The dead came back to life with an appetite for human flesh. This beautiful place turned into a pandemonium straight out of a horror movie, so I became a survivor, along with a couple of women with whom I was looking for a way to leave the city. One of them Ada Wong, a woman who was supposedly an FBI agent, but turned out to be a spy, looking for the virus that created this whole disaster. The other girl was Claire Redfield, a girl who was looking for information about her late brother Chris Redfield, who died in an accident at the Spencer mansion, where the only survivor was a woman named Jill Valentine. After seeing how Ada died because of a bastard known as Mr. X, I managed to find Claire, and together with Sherry Birkin, daughter of Dr. William Birkin, an umbrella scientist, obviously responsible for creating all this, we left the city before it was completely destroyed. So my new life began after a few months. Several outbreaks of the virus occurred all over the world, starting with the end of the world, but not only the zombies appeared, but also the lickers, the cute little friends that are chasing me. The entire system fell, governments collapsed, the contagion was massive, but among all this darkness there was good news. I heard that all the supernatural realms were infected by the virus. This gives me the possibility to look for my loved ones if I find the opportunity to return to that world with my partner ready to face anything. Now I'm heading to Washington, D.C. to leave for Japan to Kuo for a rescue mission for the Japanese president. Now you know who I am and what I do. Draigg. 2 tyrants in front, you're ready, he said in the brown-haired man's mind. Issei. Always, he said determinedly. I am Hyoudou Issei, and this is my story, a dragon, a survivor. Back to my nightmare. We see the brown-haired boy entering a military zone while taking off his helmet and walking to a hangar. Clark. Ready for this, said a black-haired man with red eyes. Issei. I'm very calm, he said with a serious look. Clark. Issei, don't hide it, Issei, keeping that pain is not good, he said seriously, putting a hand on his shoulder. Issei. I know, but it's so difficult, he said sadly. Clark. Issei, no matter what happens I will always be there to support you, he said calmly. Issei. Thanks, bro. So they both boarded a plane and headed for Japan. Underworld Gremory shelter. We can see a redeed with a sad look while looking at a photo of his entire family. Grafia. You keep complaining, said the silver-haired girl coldly. Surzich. Grafia, please, he couldn't continue because the silver screen interrupted him. Grafia. Grafia, please tell me I don't reproach you for your stupid decisions to isolate us from the human world or to betray Isay. Tell me because I don't have the right to complain for your stupidities. It's your fault my son died because of you and those damn things, she screamed furiously while shedding tears. Surzich, please me, he said sadly. Grafia. What your damn ego and those idiots caused this, you couldn't give credit to Isay, no, of course not, you wanted it all, and now look what the 37% of the demonic population is still alive, the sky, haha, what a good joke, only the churches fell and everything went to shit, tell me who's left, the idiot Michael, the hitch Gabriel and Griselda, who else is left? The Boar Arena fell after her stupidities like that, the rest of the mythologies are in the trash she said it would be. Surzich didn't say anything and just kept quiet as tears streamed down his face. Grafia. And the cherry on the cake, your sister hates you from the bottom of her heart, she said coldly as she left the room. Surzich, Rias, forgive me. In the same place but in a somewhat distant room we can see four girls with a lost look, but in the minds of the three there was the same thought. Rias, Koneko, Ross, Kuroka. Issei, where are you? BSAA Kuo military base, Japan. We can see how the plane descended and the boys arrived in front of a man. Colonel Fuji. Thank you for coming, young Hyoudou, young Redfield, the man said seriously. Issei. There's no need to thank you, it's a pleasure to work with you, he said seriously. Clark. Well, Colonel, tell us what we are looking for since we are facing each other, he said seriously. CF. Well, the man is Naruhito, the current Japanese leader, who found a refuge in the city of Kuo, 18 kilometers from here. The city is a disaster full of our good friends, the living dead. The refuge is in the Kuo Academy. The mission is to get him out along with his secretary, and that's it. We're done, he said seriously. Issei. I see, well, I hope you are ready, we leave in 15, we need a vehicle, he said seriously, leaving the place. CF. Hey, he's fine, he said seriously. Clark. Yes, just get serious about the mission, he said with a forced smile. Issei. Of all that damn city it had to be that stupid academy, he said annoyed. Draigg. Calm down, buddy, that place isn't like that anymore, don't worry, he said, trying to calm the brown-haired boy. Issei. If you're right, this is just part of the job, he said very thoughtfully. Draigg. You know what they say, when the going gets tough, make the tougher. 15 minutes later. We see a van traveling at high speed towards a city that could be seen in the distance. Outskirts of Kuo. The two boys got out of the vehicle, while the brown-haired boy looked at the city with nostalgia and sadness. Issei. This was my home, he said sadly. Clark. Come on, Isay, we have to hurry, he said seriously, starting to walk. So the boys moved stealthily through the city, trying not to attract attention so as not to get caught up in a sea of zombies. Issei. We arrived, he said, seeing his old school now with the doors like trenches. Clark. Perfect, what I do best is climbing, he said heavily. Issei. Don't complain, I'll help you, he said, lifting him up and throwing him over the trenches and then jumping over them. Clark. You know I hate that you're a dragon, he said, standing up a little sore. Issei. What are friends for? He said, amused as he entered the place followed by his partner. Draigg. I detect something in the background, he said in the brown-haired boy's mind. Issei. Well, follow us ahead, he said, pointing with his gun in one hand and a flashlight in the other. Clark. I love this, it's your typical survival horror game, he said without taking his eyes off a door at the end of the corridor. Issei. Yes, it has touches like Silent Hill, he said calmly, looking at the same door. Clark. And tell me what's behind that door, he said curiously. Issei. The student council or with our luck a group of lickers waiting to have dinner with us, said Bulon, arriving at the door. Clark. On the count of 3, 1, he said seriously. Issei. 2, he said, preparing his weapon. Clark. Isay. 3, they said in unison, suddenly entering. Issei. There's nothing here, he said, seeing the place completely empty. Clark. Isay, on your left, nervous shout as Isay turned his head. Issei could see a female silhouette that tried to hit him, but he quickly blocked it and began a mini-fight that did not show a disadvantage for either of them, and they were very even. Issei. Hey, we're not here to hurt you, we came to help you, he said seriously, holding the girl's arms. Seriously, try it, he said seriously. Issei. My name is Hyoudou Issei, a BSAA agent, he said, showing his badge. Issei, really you? Said the girl in astonishment. Issei. We met Murayama. Echoes of the past. Issei was more than surprised to meet his schoolmate again. Murayama. I can't believe it's really you, she said in amazement. Issei. But what are you doing here? I haven't seen you for over a year, he said in surprise. Murayama. Not long after I decided to leave university, my father got me a job in the National Congress until I became the president's secretary, and you, she said calmly. Issei. You are his secretary, wow, that is amazing. Well, after this madness I joined the BSAA, and I am here to rescue you and the president, he said calmly. Murayama. Great, come, I'll take you with him, come, he said, starting to walk. Clark. They really know each other, he said, somewhat surprised. Issei. Yes, she belonged to the group of girls who hit me when I did perverted things, he said, amused, while the brunette let out a small giggle. Murayama. And tell me, Isay, have you changed that attitude yet? She said curiously. Issei. You wouldn't believe me if I told you, he said with a calm smile. Murayama. I suppose so, and tell me, are you still involved in the supernatural, she said curiously, while the brown-haired boy put on a serious face. Issei. How do you know about that? He said seriously. Murayama. Despite this chaos, the government still hides the truth, but being so close to the president, I found out some things, including that one of the most important clans in the underworld is the Gremory clan. A curious last name, don't you believe it? He said, turning around and looking at the brown-haired boy. Issei. I see that you realized, and answering your first question, I was part of the Gremory clan, but after a while the leaders of the factions threw me away like garbage, taking me away from the women I loved, he said sadly. Murayama. So I wasn't lying, she said thoughtfully. Issei. What are you talking about? He said curiously. Murayama. I don't know if you know, but supernatural beings take longer to become infected depending on their race and the virus, of course, but I'll put it into perspective. An angel takes 2 to 3 weeks, a fallen one takes an average of a week, a demon takes more than a month, he said it would be. Issei. I knew that the supernatural realms had fallen due to the infection, he said seriously. Murayama. Well, a few weeks ago a demon from the Gremory clan came looking for some things, but he was already infected, so I managed to capture him, he said it would be. Issei. Could you take me with him, he said seriously. Murayama. Yes, of course, come. So the boys changed direction and headed to the occult club, causing a pain in the brown-haired boy's chest. Clark. Isay, are you okay, he said upon seeing the brown-haired boy's face as they entered the club. Issei. Calm down, it's nothing, he said while an image came to his head. Draigg. Buddy, concentrate, I know it hurts, but you have to be alert, he said seriously. Issei. Yes, you're right, he thought, more focused. So the three of them went a little further into the room, and when they opened it, they saw a girl tied up with her head down, who, upon hearing her head lightly. I see. Gasper. Ashford Mansion, Antarctica. We see 2 brunette girls entering a strange mansion. Claire. And tell me, have you managed to get close to my brother? Said the curious girl. Jill. Hey, why do you insist so much on that? Do you want me as your sister-in-law? Said a brunette with a cap, amused. Claire. And maybe you don't like the idea, she said happily. Jill. So, how did it go with Isay? She said curiously. Claire. Well, the truth is that I like him, but Isay has his priorities, and it seems that he is not interested in being in a relationship, she said a little sadly. Jill. Don't worry, you'll see that soon, you'll have an opportunity, I assure you, she said happily. Ah, love, there is nothing more beautiful, said a voice capturing everyone's attention. The 2 girls turned their gaze towards the second floor, looking at a blonde girl with an elegant demeanor. Claire Jill Alexia Ashford. Guo Academy Occult Club. We see a brown-haired man in disbelief watching his transvestite ex-partner in front of him. Gasper Isay senpai, it's you, he said with his eyes shining. Issei. It's been a while, Vladi, he said seriously. Murayama. You know he's a boy, right? He said seriously. Issei. Yes, I know, I learned it the first day, he said seriously. Gasper. Issei senpai, please help me, please, he said desperately. Issei. The same way I asked you when those bastards threw me away, you know what, I still remember how you and that idiot Kibble looked at me with contempt that day, he said in a cold voice. Gasper just lowered his head because he had no right to ask for anything after turning his back on the brunette. Issei. Although there is a small possibility that I will help you, but are you willing to cooperate? He said seriously. Gasper. Yes, I'll do whatever, but please Isay senpai help me, he said hopefully. Issei. Tell me Rias, Ross, Koneko and Kuroka are alive, he said seriously. Gasper. If they are before coming, they are in the Gremory shelter in the underworld south of the city of Lilith, he said nervously. Issei. Another thing is how the factions are, he said seriously. Gasper. Not much is known about the fallen. Asgard and Olympus fell by 50%, the angels are almost extinct, and the demons fell by 63%. I don't remember the other factions, he said nervously. Issei. What happened to that idiot Vali, he said a little angry. Gasper. I don't know, after the outbreak began it disappeared leaving everyone in shock including the girls, he said a little annoyed. Issei. I see, thanks for the very valuable and important information, he said seriously. Gasper. You're welcome, now please untie me, he said relieved. Issei. Sure, I'll help you with the virus, he said taking out a gun. Gasper. I see senpai, what are you doing, he said nervously. Bang. A shot was fired in the spot that pierced the transvestite's head as his life slowly ended. Issei. Goodbye Gasper. Conflicts. Murayama watched as Isay was no longer the same as he knew as he saw how he emotionlessly killed one of his acquaintances. Murayama. Wow, how did you do that? She said incredulously. Issei. What are you talking about? We are in an apocalyptic world where our priority is to kill the infected and end the lives of those who were bitten, he said seriously. Murayama. Boo, but you didn't kill any of your companions with whom you lived part of your life, he said with a sad look. Issei. Maybe in the past it would have been almost impossible for me to kill him, but after what he did to me all feelings towards him died, he said with a cold voice starting to walk. Murayama remained silent, she didn't know why, but seeing the brunette like that hurt her. She wanted to see the old Hyoudou, the happy and smiling although perverted. Clark. Don't comment on what you don't know. He suffered a lot because of people like that demon, he said seriously, looking at the girl walking beside him. Murayama. I know, but I want to see Isay again as before, he said sadly. Clark. I doubt it, time and people change a person, he said seriously. So the boys continued walking until they reached the president of Japan. Japan. Thank you for coming to rescue us, he said gratefully. Murayama. Now that we are with the president, what's next? She said nervously. Issei. We must move quickly towards the south exit of the city, there is our vehicle, he said seriously. Murayama. But why so far away, she said nervously. Clark. It was either that place or come here with him, followed by a horde of zombies with us, he said seriously. Issei. If there are no more doubts, we should go. Gremory Refugio. We see how the Redeed watches as a bishop piece returns to normal, losing that crimson touch and returning to its white color. Rias. So the transvestite finally died, she said with a slight smile. Koneko. But why are you so happy, she said curiously without removing her sad face. Rias. Let's say one has already fallen. Behind the door a black-haired girl listened to what the Redeed said, feeling a deep pain in her chest. Bakeno. You really hate us that much? Kuo, Japan. We see Isay and company walking as stealthily as possible so as not to attract the attention of the zombies. Murayama. It's one block ahead and he couldn't finish because Isay covered his mouth. Issei. Ah, he said pointing above him. Everyone looked up seeing two beings on all fours with exposed muscles and no eyes, but with a large tongue. Murayama and the president's eyes widened in horror to the point that Clark had to cover the man's mouth to keep from screaming. Issei. Now if you don't want to die, go slowly and don't ask loudly, he said seriously in a whisper. The two attended as they continued their walk until. Crash. The president broke a bottle that he accidentally threw. Liquor. Brewer, both beasts roared, releasing themselves from the ceiling. Issei. If this went to hell, he said taking out a shotgun. Clark. Shut up, you have to admit that the mission was a bit boring, he said, also taking out a shotgun. So the two boys were able to kill them with 3 shotgun blasts, but noises began to be heard throughout the city. Issei. We have to get rid of. Unknown location. We see a silver-haired man looking at the dark and grey landscape while watching the zombies crash into a net. Iku. What are we going to do? Food is scarce, he said seriously looking at the albino. Ali. Who is in a position to leave, he said seriously. Iku. Cao Y Arter said seriously. Ali. Well, we leave tomorrow, he said seriously. Iku. You're crazy, you don't have an arm, he said seriously. Ali. I don't care, I have to help them as much as I can, he said seriously. Iku. That doesn't prove anything and you know it's true, he said seriously. Ali. But as long as I can help, I will, he said seriously. Iku. That won't fix your sins. Outskirts of Kuo. We see everyone running quickly as they get into the vehicle while a group of lickers follow it. Issei. Start, he said nervously. Clark. I'm coming, he said starting the vehicle. So they left in a hurry, leaving the city behind with their dead. Murayama. The nightmare is over, he said with a big sigh. Clark. Tell me what you plan to do now that you know they are alive, he said seriously, a little calmer. Issei. It's not obvious that I'll go for them and kill whoever opposes them, he said seriously. Clark. You know you can die, right? He said seriously. Issei. I don't care about anything, I'll do whatever it takes to see them again, he said determinedly. Clark. Okay, I'm in, he said seriously. Issei. What, he said confused. Clark. What you heard will be fun, and best friends never abandon each other, together in good times and bad, he said with a big smile. Issei. Thanks friend, he said happily. Murayama. He smiled again like he did before, he thought while looking at the brown-haired boy. Clark. I hope when the time comes you don't hurt my sister's heart. Base of the BSAA, Washington, D.C., USA. We see a brunette with glasses next to a blonde man who looked hopeful. Michael. Miss Wong, are you sure that Issei is here, he said looking at the building. Ada. That's right, here is your home, only now you are on a mission, and I don't know when you will return, she said stretching out her hand. Michael. Here is your pay, he said giving him a wad of bills. Ada. It's a pleasure doing business with you, she said as she left the place. Michael. Issei, I hope we can fix things, he said sadly. At that moment a magic circle appeared revealing a blonde with a somewhat disturbed face. Gabriel. Nai-sama, please tell me that you found him, she said very nervously while holding her brother tightly. Michael. Yes, I found where he is, but he can't be found because he is on a mission. We just have to wait, he said a little nervously. Gabriel. If finally Issei we can be together. The divine extinction. The BSAA Japan base. The chestnut and his partner were in the hangar about to return to the USA for a well-deserved rest. Murayama. Issei, thank you very much for everything, she said nervously. Issei. You don't have to thank me, it's my job, he said calmly while adjusting his backpacks. Murayama. Still, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you, and for that I thank you, he said calmly. Issei. It was gratifying to see a familiar face again in all this mess, he said with a calm smile. Murayama. I hope you can see your girls again, he said with joy. So after a light hug, the two boys boarded the plane and then left. Murayama. And I hope one day to be one of them. 14 hours later. Base of the BSAA, Washington, D.C. The boys descended calmly while watching the sunset. Issei, Nai-sama, said a voice familiar to the brown-haired boy. Issei. Sherry, hello little one, what are you doing here, he said, seeing a blonde girl. Sherry. Miss Elomar told me that you would arrive at this time, and I came to see you, she said happily. Issei. I see, he said happily. Clark. As always so imperative, no Sherry, he said calmly. Sherry. Don't complain Clark-san, I'm a girl, she said happily. Issei. You have a good point, she said mockingly. Clark. Okay, let's have something to eat before I go to dinner, he said tiredly. Issei. I support you, he couldn't continue because he managed to see a silhouette with a red dress. Clark. I see earth to Issei, he said worried about the brown-haired boy. Issei. Ah yes, I'm fine, we're going to have dinner, Sherry, are you coming, he said reacting. Sherry. Yes, she said happily. So the three of them began to walk, but you could see that the brown-haired boy was very thoughtful. Draigg. Buddy, are you okay? He said, distressed by the brown-haired boy. Issei. I don't know, Draigg could be her, he said mentally nervous. Draigg. It's impossible for Ada to die, you saw her die in Raccoon City, he said confused. Issei. I don't know, but something gives me a bad feeling, he said nervously. Draigg. Stay alert and remember I'll always be there to support you, he said seriously. Issei. Thanks, Draigg. As Issei and company walked away into the distance, a beautiful Asian-looking woman looked at the boy through binoculars. Ada, soon Issei we will be together. Unknown village, Spain. We see Vali and his group looking for different provisions for all the people they had in their shelter. Vali. This place is perfect to take away his supplies, he said seriously. Cow. Perfect, we went from supernatural criminals to simple thieves in this apocalyptic dump, he said with annoyance. Arthur. Keep quiet, we have to stay hidden, we must not attract attention, he said angrily. Biku. Look, it seems to be a warehouse, he said, pointing to a somewhat large warehouse. Ali. Excellent, there must be a lot of food, he said seriously, starting to move, followed by the others. Biku. What else do we need? He said seriously as the four of them managed to get in without being seen. Cow. It doesn't matter, we have to take everything. He couldn't continue because he heard the doors of the warehouse open. The four of them looked at an elderly man who was looking at them calmly. Ali. If you keep quiet, nothing will happen and you will keep your life, he said seriously while the man smiled maliciously. Outsiders, kill them, he said angrily. The boys tried to silence him, but before they could act, they saw all the people in the town approaching with iron bars, knives, and other sharp weapons. Ali, what is this? The next day. Washington, D.C. We see the brown-haired boy walking through one of the nearby parks while trying to think of a way to go to the underworld to find his girls. Issei. How can I go to the underworld, he thought with concern. Draigg. I really don't know with that supposed barrier that those idiots put up to try to prevent someone infected from getting through, he said seriously. Issei. And what good did you bunch of idiots do? The only thing you did was prevent people from escaping from the kingdoms. You practically condemned yourselves, he said seriously. Draigg. Yes, I know, maybe if we use all the power of the Juggernaut drive, maybe we can break the barrier, he said thoughtfully. Issei. Yes, maybe, but if only we had more supernatural beings to use more power to break that damn barrier, he said curiously. Gabriel. My dear Iseei, I finally found you, he said madly, catching the brown-haired boy's attention. Issei. Impossible, he said angrily, looking at the purest angel in heaven. Michael. Iseei, how good it is to see you again, said the former ruler of heaven, appearing next to his sister. Issei. How the hell are you here? He said seriously, trying to control his power. Gabriel. That doesn't matter, the important thing is that we can finally be together, he said very happily. Issei. So of course, and we will have a big wedding in a church, and we will have many children, he said ironically. Gabriel. Yes, exactly, she said excitedly. Issei. Well, I'll pass, he said with annoyance, turning around and starting to walk. Michael. Issei, please wait, he said distressed. Issei. Stop being hypocritical, do you think I forget what you did to me by taking my achievements and claiming them as your own and throwing me away like trash, he said angrily. Michael. Iseei, please, he couldn't continue because Iseei interrupted him. Issei. Silence, I don't want to hear your ridiculous excuses, and you better leave here or on this day the angels will become extinct, he said seriously. Gabriel. No, now we are together and nobody. Bang. A shot hit the angel while everyone looked at a dark-haired man with a serious look. Clark. Enough with this ridiculousness, you have no right to blame Iseei for anything, he said seriously without lowering his weapon. Michael. This matter is not a human matter, he said seriously. Issei. He is my friend and everything that concerns me he can get involved in, so if you've hurt him, get out of here, he said angrily. Draigg. Issei, wait, he said seriously. Issei. Draigg, what's wrong, he said confused. Draigg. Use your head, they can help us enter the underworld. Supernatural events. Issei looked seriously at the pair of angels while his partner pointed at them. Issei. Clark, we can talk in private, you two stay here, he said seriously. The two angels looked at each other nervously and then nodded for the boys to move a couple of meters away. Clark. What's up, tell me, should I delete them or what? He said seriously. Issei. Look, Draigg just gave me a brilliant idea, he said seriously. Clark. What are you talking about? Explain yourself. I don't understand anything. First you say that you would like to kill most supernatural beings, and now you say no, he said confused. Issei. Look, Draigg told me that we could use them to enter the underworld, he said seriously. Clark. It sounds interesting, but tell me, how much power can the angels have now that their system has collapsed and people have lost faith in religions, he said seriously. Issei. It's true, I hadn't thought about it, he said thoughtfully. Draigg. You have a good point, they must be very weak, he said doubtfully. Issei. But even if it's very little, any amount of magic is useful, he said seriously. Clark. Whatever you want, you have my full support, he said, bumping his fists with the brown-haired boy. Issei. Okay. So the two boys returned to the angels, noticing that Michael was a little nervous. Issei. First of all, could you tell me if you have enough money to survive? He said seriously. Michael. Yes, we have more than enough, he said nervously. Issei. I understand, I see that you are wearing normal clothes, perfect, now go and see the city, and in 2 hours we will meet in the south of the city, you will see a blue building, we will meet there, I will take care of getting you a home and getting you security passes so that they don't shoot you, he said seriously. Michael. Yes, agreed, he said nervously. Issei. Sure, but Michael, I'd like to talk to you a little, he said seriously, looking at Michael. Gabriel. But what about me? She said nervously. Issei. You stay here and think of a nice future together, he said bitterly. Gabriel. Okay, he said happily as the men walked away. Issei. Now tell me what the hell is wrong with your sister, he said seriously. Michael. Pfffff, I knew that sooner or later you would ask me, he said heavily. Issei. I think it was more than obvious, he said seriously. Michael. Well, Lou, after we took the idea of getting rid of you, she began to doubt if it was the right thing to do, and when Volley left us and the infection began, she slowly lost her sanity, repeating day and night that she was stupid and didn't deserve to live, and I had to create a device to prevent her from becoming a fallen one, he said sadly. Issei. I understand now, he said thoughtfully. Michael. And that's not all, she started killing angels with the idea of avoiding seeing them as monsters, even when Irina fell she cut off her legs, saying it was her punishment, he said sadly. Issei. I understand now, and with the device you created she didn't fall, he said seriously. Michael. And everything got worse when we went to an abandoned Umbrella base in Italy, and in their database, there were recordings of the events that occurred in Raccoon City, and we could see you on the train that escaped the city before it was destroyed, he said seriously. Issei. And let me guess, when they found out I was alive, your sister became obsessed with me, right? He said seriously. Michael. That's right, he said sadly. Issei. Well, now go with your sister, he said seriously while he nodded and left with her. Clark. This is going to be complicated, he said seriously. Issei. You have no idea. People of Spain. We see Vali and his group battling against the villagers of the town who were very resistant. Iku. We have to get out of here, he said nervously. Vali. Yes, I know he couldn't continue because he had to dodge a chainsaw. Arthur. And that crazy guy, he said nervously, seeing a man with a chainsaw. How cow. That doesn't matter, I've knocked that bastard down more than 10 times, he said nervously. Albion. It's time to get out of here, useless, he said seriously from the albino's wings. Ali. I know, you don't have to say couldn't continue because someone spoke. You will never get out of here, said a man who looked like a priest with a strange staff. It will be your devotion or death. Asgard. We see a gigantic wall around Odin's great palace. Inside the palace we can see a group of people including the leaders of Asgard and Yokai. Odin. Well, Gondal, what information do you have for me? He said nervously. Gondal. As always, we have no signs of life from the other factions, and the humans are the ones who are better off in terms of resources and subsidies, said the woman heavily. Isaka. Who would have thought that those we thought were the weakest were the ones who best adapted to this madness, he said heavily. Odin. That shows us that we should not call weak someone who does not show their true ability. By the way, Isaka, how is Kunu, he said thoughtfully. Isaka. It's been 8 hours since she was infected, she only has 5 days left, she said with tears in her eyes. Odin. If only he were here, he said heavily. Gondal. Issei Sama said sadly. Odin. Calm down, Gondal, I know it was a mistake what we did with the boy and he couldn't continue because someone came in a hurry. Valkyrie. Sir, we were able to repair the recordings of what happened in the human city known as Terragrija, she said, while bringing a projector. So the woman began to play a recording where a huge explosion was seen and then a zombie outbreak began. After that, people were seen being evacuated by an organization known as the BSAA. Isaka. Impossible, shock scream. Odin. What's wrong? He said confused. Isaka. She rewinds the image and stops when she focuses on the helicopter, she said nervously. The Valkyrie followed instructions, stopping the video just as agents of the organization get out and remove their masks. Odin. It's impossible, he said incredulously. Gondal. Isaka. I see. No problems. Everyone was stunned by what they had just seen, Issei Hyoudou, the boy they betrayed and who they never thought they would see again. Odin. Where is that organization? He said seriously. Valkyrie. We are not very clear, sir, the BSAA has different bases around the world and with the problem with the communicators or magic trackers, we are nullified in terms of searches, she said nervously. Odin. Curse, frustrated scream. Isaka. We could send a search party, she said nervously. Valkyrie. But Miss Yusaka, even though we no longer have the barrier that prevents us from traveling to other worlds, the zombies would finish us off before we even reach the Bifrost, she said nervously. Odin. She's right, supernatural zombies are more dangerous, he said, head down. Gondal. I don't care, I'll look for it, she said determinedly. Valkyrie. Lady Gondal can't be very dangerous, she said worried. Gondal. There is no choice, he could be our only hope. 2 days later. Base of the BSAA, Washington, D.C. Issei, as promised, arranged a home for the pair of angels, but had now been called to the headquarters on an emergency basis. Issei. Clark, why did they call us? He said walking quickly followed by his friend. Clark. I don't know, maybe it's for a new mission, he said confused. Issei. It's strange, first they let us know hours before to be ready, he said somewhat surprised. Clark. Maybe an outbreak somewhere in the city, he said curiously. Issei. Maybe, he said as they entered the place. Shiva. Thank you for being here so quickly, said a distressed woman with dark skin. Clark. Okay, Al-Omar, tell us what's going on, he said seriously. Shiva. Guys, remember that Claire and Jill had a mission a few days ago, she said nervously. Issei. Yes, not Antarctica, he said thoughtfully. Shiva. Exactly, but we lost communication 4 days ago, she said nervously. I see, Clark, what they screamed in shock. Shiva. Yes, I'm sorry, I know we should have informed you before, but we wanted to be sure, she said nervously. Clark. This has to be a bucking joke, he shouted furiously, throwing what he had in his hand. Issei. Clark, please calm down, I know this worries you, but we must find a solution, he said nervously. Clark. I have a solution, Alomar, tell them to prepare a transport for me to go to Antarctica, he said seriously. Shiva. No, we can't do that, and if a big problem arises you two are the best agents, she said nervously. Clark. Let me be very clear, I don't care if the worst epidemic ever seen breaks out here. If you make me choose between all of you and my sister, consider yourself dead, he said angrily, leaving the place. Issei. Get a ship in 20 minutes, the faster we leave and find them, the faster we will return, he said seriously. Shiva. Okay, 20 minutes hangar 4, she said nervously. Issei. Perfect. So the boy left the place and a few meters further on he saw his friend leaning against a wall. Issei. Hangar 4, 20 minutes, get ready, he said seriously. Clark. Good, he said while walking. Draigg. You two are really scary, he said amused. Issei. What can I say? We're not best friends for nothing, he said as he walked home. Draigg. Sure, and acting that way has nothing to do with the fact that you like Redfield, he said mockingly. Issei. Shut your mouth, underdeveloped lizard, he said blushing. Draigg. You can never hide from me what your heart feels. 20 minutes later. The boys were ready to board a helicopter, seeing a woman they both knew. Hey guys, ready to fly, she said playfully. Issei. Helena said confused. Helena. If you hurry up, we have a long trip, she said it would be. The boys, somewhat confused, decided to go up while the woman took off. Issei. Since when are you a pilot, he said curiously. Helena. I'm old, you just didn't ask me, she said calmly. Issei. Because you wanted to help us, he said curiously. Helena. Well, for 2 reasons. First, because we are friends, and second, no other pilot had the guts to travel to Antarctica, she said it would be. Issei. Thank you. Unknown village of Spain. We see how Vali and his group were escaping from the angry mob. Vali. Come on, we're almost there, we made it, he said, a little tired. Arthur. Be careful, I shout worriedly, pushing Vali. Everyone saw how the blonde was split in half by the guy with the chainsaw. Vali. Arthur scream in shock. Cow. We have to get out of here, he said, managing to get far enough away to create a magic circle. The boys were transported a few miles away from that location. Salazar. They escaped, said a gaunt-looking boy seriously. Osmond. Calm down, sir, the plagues are with them, he said with a macabre smile. Salazar. Excellent. But the ex-terrorists. They all fell exhausted and hurt, but the sadness that surrounded them was more than clear. Biku. I told you it was a bad idea, you would only get in our way, and look what happened. Arthur is dead, furious scream. Vali. Biku didn't continue because Biku interrupted him. Biku. Shut up, I don't want to listen to you, everything is your fault, everything bad that has happened is your fault, we would be fine in the underworld, but no. You didn't have the balls to tell the Gremory servants that you never loved them and that you only used them to feel better than Isay, and look how we ended up, you know something, get out, don't go back to the shelter or I'll kill you, angry shout, taking cow in a magic circle. Vali. This is getting worse, no Albion, he said tiredly. Albion. Shut up, trash, who told you that you could talk to me, he said seriously in the boy's head. Vali. You will also give me the sword, he said frustrated. Albion. Believe me, if I could find another carrier, believe me, I would have done it already, he said, annoyed, cutting off the communication. Vali. Where did I go wrong? 8 hours later. Antarctica. The boys looked at the coldest place on the planet while wondering where they could look for the girls. Helena. This is where we received the last signal from the ship, she said it would be. Clark. Yes, and I saw why, he said, pointing to the remains of a plane. Issei. Helena, come down here, he said seriously. Helena. Are you sure? She said nervously. Issei. Yes, it's time to take action. Headaches. The boys got off the helicopter and started walking, seeing an imposing mansion in the middle of Antarctica. Issei. It's more than clear, isn't it? He said seriously, preparing his weapon. Clark. If it has to be done. Ashford Manor. We see the blonde woman calmly looking at different monitors until one with sonar began to ring. Alexia. Well, it seems we have new guests, she said, looking at the sonar with 2 red dots. Alfred. You want me to take care of them, said a boy very similar to her. Alexia. Calm down, bro, he'll take care of them, won't he, Dad? She said, watching a screen with a human-shaped being but with fairly large limbs. Alexia. I hope you don't let me down. Quente Briefest Asgard. We see the most veteran Valkyrie advancing stealthily to avoid being detected by the zombies. Gondel. A few more meters and I'll get to the transporter, she said somewhat nervously. The albino continued walking, but something caught her attention, causing great pain to the woman. Gondel. Heimdall said, looking at the bridge guardian. Heimdall. Go Gondel, he said weakly. Gondel. Heimdall, you are alive, calm down, I will help you, he said, going to see him. Heimdall. No, already it's too late for me, they bit me, not anymore, I don't have much time left, he said weakly. Bundle. No, you will get well, he said sadly. Heimdall. No, don't make jokes to take it now, my time is up, he said, stretching out his sword. Bundle, I understand, he said, taking his sword and raising it. Heimdall, and before everything I could see that the young Issei is in Washington, he said weakly. Bundle. Thank you, he said, stabbing his sword, ending the man's life, but not before shedding a few tears. Bundle. I hope the gates of Valhalla open to a noble warrior like you, he said sadly. After that the woman began to walk to a large portal that had a sword-shaped lock. Bundle. It's time to see you, Security. Antarctica. The boys walked with some difficulty in the cold of Antarctica. Brewer, a loud roar caught the boys' attention as they watched the being Alexia was looking at. Issei. But what the hell is that, he said alert. Clark. Whatever it is, it doesn't look friendly, he said, starting to shoot as the strange thing began to jump. The two boys shot mercilessly, and after a few shots the creature fell, but after a short while it got up again. Issei. Wow, it seems that it will be more difficult than it seems, he said curiously. Draigg. I'll give you a suggestion, he said curiously, appearing in the chestnut's hand. Issei. Of course, why not, he said seriously. Draigg. Why don't you aim at his chest, he said curiously. Issei remained silent as the two looked, and indeed a rather large red dot was seen on his chest. Clark. Ah, I see, let's go Issei, I'll distract him, he said, starting to run while shooting suddenly. The creature threw out both arms and tried to catch the black-haired man, but he narrowly escaped, and using some ropes he managed to catch both arms. Clark. Issei throwing, said running, while Issei put his arms together. Issei nodded and threw it, and it fell behind the bow, and with the ropes he raised his arms, leaving the creature's body exposed. Issei. It's your end, dragon, shoot, he said, launching his attack through the creature's chest. Clark. Well, that was easy, he said, bumping his fists with the brown-haired boy. Issei. Okay, let's go for the girls. So the two boys began to advance towards the mansion, leaving the lifeless body of the bow. Ashford Manor. The two boys entered through the front door without lowering their weapons. I see. TSK, this place is quite big, it will cost us a lot of work, he said it would be. Alexia. What are you looking for here in my house? Said a woman on top of some stairs. Issei. Who are you? He said seriously while they both pointed their guns. Alexia. Calm down, gentlemen, we don't have to use violence, she said, raising her hands. Clark. If we go to that, a few days ago two girls came to this place and they no longer had communication with us, he said angrily. Issei. And we would also like to know who you are and what this place is, he said seriously. Alexia. Okay, my name is Alexia Ashford, granddaughter of Edward Ashford, one of the founders of Umbrella, and this is one of the oldest Umbrella facilities, but it is also my home since my father left me here, and with respect to the girls, they are here, they arrived very weak, and we decided to help them, she said it would be. Issei. Then I could talk to them, he said seriously. Alexia. Sure, follow me, she said calmly, turning her back. The boys put their weapons away as they climbed the stairs. Draigg. Stay alert, said in head. Issei. If you don't worry, he said seriously. So they began to follow the woman cautiously until they reached a strange door. Alexia. Here they are, I'll leave them to talk alone, she said calmly. Issei. Thank you, he said seriously as the woman left. Both boys entered the room seeing Claire but a blonde girl in a strange outfit. Clark. Sister, as he couldn't continue because Claire turned around throwing a powerful punch that the boy managed to dodge. Issei. Claire, what's wrong with you, he couldn't continue because he had to dodge a kick from the blonde. Clark. Jill, he said in shock recognizing the blonde. Issei. Boo, but what the heck is happening to them, he said, nervously pushing Jill, uncovering part of her outfit revealing a strange device. Clark. They are controlling them. In another room there were three blondes watching the camera, watching the agents fight. Do you think the prototypes will work? He said seriously, looking at Ashford. Alexia, of course. Wesker. Danger in Antarctica. The boys began to fight hand-to-hand against the girls who had that strange device on their chest that caused a state of mental control while they were watched by the Ashfords and a certain Wesker. I see. Jill, please, I don't want to hurt you, she said, dodging the blows of the now blonde. Clark. Concentrate, they won't pay attention to us, he said, blocking his younger sister's blows. So the two began to counterattack, of course, without throwing such lethal blows to avoid causing serious damage. Issei. Draigg, any idea how to destroy those things, he thought seriously. Draigg. Could you put me on their chest and I will overload them with my energy so we can destroy them without hurting them, he said seriously. Issei. Okay, let's do it, he said determinedly. Clark. You have an idea, I'm listening, he said, pushing his sister a little far away. Issei. Hold Jill, he said, taking advantage of that brief moment when they had the advantage. The black-haired man quickly obeyed and grabbed her by the back, despite the blows she gave to get out of his grip. Issei Draig's serious cry. Draigg. Boost X20. The dragon's voice resounded as the gauntlet began to shine, as did the device, until it finally broke. Issei. That's it, he said, moving away from the girl who fainted. Clark. Not yet, he said, fighting with his sister. Issei. I'm coming. Gremory Underworld shelter. We can see Surzich kneeling in a room while his mother looked at the lifeless body of Zeodicus, who no longer had a head. Surzich. Forgive me, Dad. Sniff. If I had been a better leader, you would still be alive just like Milica's, he said, crying in front of his father's body. Rias. And you think saying that now matters? You think regretting it will bring them back? Tell me, will it? She said coldly from the door of the room. Then Alana. Rias, please sniff, your dad just died. Please sniff, she said, crying. Rias. I think you forgot, Venezuelan, you and that corpse are nothing to me anymore. This death means nothing to me, she said, turning around, leaving her mother stunned and the Redeed still submerged in sadness. Then Alana. I not only lost my husband, but also my daughter, she said with tears. Rafia. No, you lost a daughter since Isay was betrayed, she said, leaving the room. Surzich, this is going from bad to worse. A few meters further from the room. We see the Redeed walking around the place looking at everyone with a cold gaze, causing fear among the few servants who were around the place. The Keno. Rias, we can talk, she said nervously. Rias. What did I tell you about calling me that word, you fallen hitch? He said without looking at her. The Keno. Po, please, I know we made a mistake. Boo, she couldn't continue because Rias interrupted her. Rias. Silence, there is no, but that is worth it. You and those hitches ceased to exist for me when they decided to betray Isay for a cowardly imbecile like Rizavim's grandson. Even though Isay gave them his all and helped them with their problems, like you, who helped you accept your disgusting fall inside, and so that like a good bucking fall, you would go before the first man who spoke nicely to you, he said coldly, leaving the black-haired woman silent. Everyone watched as the Redeed humiliated her queen, who had to hold back her tears when she saw how much hatred the one who was once her best friend had for her. Kuroka. Now laugh calmly, it's not worth it, let's go, said the Nekomata, starting to walk with the Redeed. The Kendo turned around looking at the other pieces of Rias, who had a sad look, while Asia cried. Zenobia. She'll never forgive us, right? Ashford Mansion, Antarctica. We see the girls lying on the floor while the boys looked after them after freeing them from the mental control of those devices. Jill. Clark, I see what happened where we are, she said, slowly opening her eyes. Clark. Jill, are you okay? What happened to them, especially you? He said, distressed for the girl. Jill. What happened? I don't know, I remember it now. Claire and I entered the Umbrella base, and we met a certain Alexia. She attacked us and then locked us in some capsules. Before we went to sleep, she told me that my blood was very precious, and I don't remember anything about that, she said thoughtfully. Clark. Calm down, don't strain yourself, he said, helping her to get up. Jill. This is actually better than facing Nemesis, she said with a smile. Clark. Stop joking, this is not the time for this, he said ironically. Jill. Oh, don't be so bitter, she said mockingly. Claire. Oh, where am I, what happened? She said in pain. Clark. Sister, he said, going to hug the girl. Issei. I'm glad you're okay, he said, relieved. Claire. Issei, brother, what are you doing here? She said, confused. Issei. Nothing, rescuing them from a crazy woman locked up in Antarctica, he said ironically. Claire. Oh really, she said incredulously. Issei. Yes, but it's not time to talk. We have to get out of here before that crazy girl comes back, he said seriously. Clark. If we have to escape, he said as the four left the room, seeing a tyrant. Clark. That must be a bucking joke, he said, taking out his weapon, while the girls took some weapons from the boys, and Isay summoned his sacred gear. Issei. Let's have fun, he said, launching into the attack. Secret room. Wesker. So this boy is a supernatural being, he said, watching as the boys shot at him, and Isay hit him fiercely. Alexia. And what kind of supernatural being would it be? She said curiously. Alfred. Sister, do you think it's powerful? He said confused. Wesker. Tell me how powerful a dragon is, he said seriously. Alfred. Alexia. A dragon, they said, impressed. Wesker. That's right, it's one of the 13 Longinus, the forearm of the Red Emperor dragon Draigg, one of the 2 celestial dragons, he said, while turning over a device. Alfred. And who sent you that information, he said curiously. Wesker. A contact who knows a lot about the supernatural, he said seriously. Alexia. How interesting, a legendary dragon, she said thoughtfully. Alfred. Sister, what are you planning? He said curiously. Alexia. I'll go check out his power. While the girl left the room, the boys continued fighting against the tyrant. Well, they had a slight advantage, thanks to Isay, to the point that they reached the hallway. Issei. Die, he said, launching a dragon shoot that disintegrated the bow in half. Claire. We did it, now we have to run, she said seriously as the four of them headed for the door. Alexia. Why are you in such a hurry if the party has just started? She said at the top of the stairs. Issei. There's the crazy one, he said nervously. The blonde began to descend the stairs while she was covered in flames. Issei. What the hell, he said incredulously, seeing how the girl showed a totally different appearance. Alexia, let's get the party started. Hour of a queen. The boys looked in shock at the woman who had transformed into a totally different being. Clark, things got hot, don't you think? He said amused, loading his gun. Issei. This is no time for jokes, he couldn't continue because Alexia moved at high speed and gave him a strong blow to the abdomen. Claire, I see, she screamed worriedly, but she couldn't go see him because Alexia appeared in front of her. Alexia. You would be an excellent specimen for the virus, he said, holding her chin. Clark. Get away from her, he said seriously, throwing a punch in the face, making her back away. The woman looked seriously at the black-haired man as she began to walk towards him, but he did not flinch and stood up to her. Alexia. Wow, you're not afraid of me, what is it about? Are you very brave or very stupid? She said seriously. Clark. I would say intelligent since it caught your attention for the necessary time, he said seriously, but with a calm smile. Alexia. What are you talking about? She couldn't continue because a red armor sent her flying with a punch through a wall. Clark. That's what I was talking about, by the way. I see, you took a while, he said seriously. Issei. Don't complain, that damn thing hits harder than it looks, he said seriously, while the four watched as the woman came out of the rubble quite upset. Alexia. Damn you, I'll pay for this, she said angrily, raising her hand. The agents looked at each other in confusion, but their confusion didn't last long as the ground began to move and strange vines emerged from it around the woman. Alexia. This isn't over, she said seriously, giving a signal to the vines that launched themselves at them. The boys quickly helped each other to dodge the vines, while Isay launched himself against Alexia, exchanging blows at high speed. Issei. What the hell is wrong with you? Why did you do this? You ruined your life, he said seriously, launching a dragon shoot that was covered by a vine belonging to the woman. Alexia. You are wrong about this virus. I reached the pinnacle of human evolution. Now I am above humans, and I will be the one to establish a new path for perfect beings, she said, raising her hands with pride. Issei. Now I understand, you're completely crazy, I don't understand how someone could have a daughter like you, he said seriously. Claire. Issei, don't try to talk to someone like her, beings like her will never change, she said seriously while shooting at a vine and at the same time dodging it. Alexia. No, you don't understand, I am above you, and I will show you, she said furiously as she began to change her form. Alexia. This is my maximum power, this is perfection, she said seriously, while some strange insects came out of her body. Jill. This has to be a bucking joke, she said incredulously, reloading her weapons. Clark. Come on, this is no different than the things we've faced, he said seriously, pointing at the woman. Claire. If she's not different, we'll go after her, she said seriously. Issei. Well, you want to show your maximum power, so let's go, Draigg, he said seriously. Draigg. Well, we are the celestial dragon who suffered the betrayal and abandonment of the beings that mattered to us. We fell, but we rose stronger than ever, and we will cause the destruction of those who dare to challenge us, said the dragon's voice before pausing. Issei, Draigg, Dragon Hunter, they both shouted as the armor changed shape, becoming thinner with the wings a little higher than the previous one, but with a power level higher than the balance breaker. Alexia. Whatever you do, you won't be able to defeat evolution, she said seriously, attacking the chestnut tree with her vines. Issei began to dodge the vines and took advantage to cut them with the strength of his hand, without the need for a sword or something sharp, but he had a problem, and it was the insects who tried to hinder him. Bang. The others began to shoot at the insects, killing them after a few shots, in order to help the brown-haired boy defeat the Ashford. Clark. Come on, don't stop, we'll take care of it, he said seriously, shooting while the brown-haired boy watched the girls nod. Issei, okay, Alexia is mine. Mansion room. We see two men watching the battle through a screen, one looked serious and the other looked calm. Wesker. Tell me, do you think your sister can win? He said seriously. Alfred. If my sister symbolizes evolution, nothing can defeat her, he said calmly. Wesker. If what they told me about him is true, she will never be able to defeat him, he thought seriously. Alfred. What are you thinking? He said curiously. Wesker. Nothing important, I'm just thinking about how this dragon could be useful to us, he said seriously. Alfred. It's true, it could be useful for evolution, he said thoughtfully. Wesker. If I don't share that, I won't share it, he said taking out a gun. Alfred? What are you talking about? He couldn't continue because. Bang. Alexia. Ah, screams holding her chest. Issei. What's wrong? He said confused. Alexia. My brother, she said desperately as she turned around to the second floor. Wesker. This was fun, but we have to finish, he said, pressing a red button that said self-destruct. So he left the room, but he could see Alexia trying to climb up with her form, but she got stuck, which made him make fun of her. Alexia. Wesker, damn you, what did you do to my brother? She screamed furiously, trying to reach him, but her body wouldn't let her. Wesker. It seems that the evolution of humanity has finished, he said mockingly while opening a window, and a helicopter with a strange logo could be seen. Wesker. Goodbye, Alexia, he said, getting into the helicopter. Alexia. Wesker is coming back, damn you, you'll pay for this, she screamed furiously. Clark. Issei, I think we should get out of here, he said seriously. Issei. What's wrong? He said confused. At that moment a voice was heard that alarmed the boys. Self-destruct protocol has been activated, evacuate the area in 2 minutes, said the voice that echoed throughout the place. Issei. I understand, we have to go, he said seriously, starting to run. The four of them reached the exit, but Isay for some strange reason decided to take a look, seeing Alexia trying to move forward. Alexia. Brother, please answer, she said distressed, trying to free herself. Issei. Hey, get out of here, your brother is dead, he said seriously, but a little saddened by the woman's anguish. Alexia. No, he is alive, I know it, she said with tears. Draigg. Issei, what are you going to do? He said curiously. Issei. Oh, I don't know, I have to help her, he said seriously. At that moment the chestnut flew and stood in front of the woman, holding her face. Issei. I'll help you, get out and help my companions, I'll go get your brother, he said seriously. She remained silent for a few seconds before nodding and turning around and starting to run to the door, breaking it down. Isay. Okay, let's go, he said, going to a room with the door open, seeing Alfred's lifeless body, and he had no choice but to carry the lifeless body. Outside the mansion. We could see the three agents being carried by Alexia with her vines while they tried to free themselves. Jill. Damn it, let me go, she said annoyed. Claire. What did you do to Isay? Where is he? She said angrily. Alexia. He and I came to a couldn't continue because. Boom. The mansion exploded with great force, causing a great disaster, while the three agents were horrified. Agents? Issei. Doubts and questions. Everyone watched in shock as Umbrella's mansion flew through the air after seeing that Isay couldn't get out. Claire. Isay, no Isay, she screamed upset, trying to go to the rubble, but was stopped by her brother. Clark. Don't stop, he said sadly, holding his sister. Claire. How do you say that? That perhaps you don't care about Isay? Tell me you've never cared, she shouted angrily, trying to break free. Clark. We are in Antarctica, and that explosion left the ground very fragile. What I am trying to do is prevent you from killing yourself, because if you do, Isay will never forgive me, he said with his head down, leaving his sister speechless. Issei. He's right, if you were in a dangerous situation and he didn't help you, I would never forgive him, he said as he appeared in the air with a body in his hands. Claire. You're alive, she said, running to him as she descended. Clark. Son of a hitch, you're still alive, he said mockingly. Issei. That explosion could never kill me, he said calmly. Alexia. Sama, she said, going to where the brown-haired boy was who was leaving his brother on the cold ground. Issei. I'm sorry, Alexia, when I arrived your brother was already dead, I'm sorry, he said with pity for the woman. Alexia. No, please, this can't be true, sniff, please Alfred, open your eyes, sniff, the girl cried sadly as she returned to her human form. Clark. Wesker killed him, didn't he? He said seriously. Issei. It seems so, he said seriously. Clark. That damn thing, he said furiously. Jill. Clark, please calm down, you no longer gain anything by making you angry, she said, calming the black-haired man. Issei. Well, we must return to the base, he said seriously. Clark. Well, Miss Alexia, I propose a deal, he said seriously, looking at the blonde who looked at him confused. Alexia. What kind of deal, she said curiously. Clark. She will come with us, she will be watched by security, and she will tell us everything she knows about Wesker, and in exchange, I will give her the opportunity to get revenge on Wesker, he said, seriously, surprising everyone. Alexia. Okay, I accept, but when we find Wesker I can torture him until I'm satisfied, she said seriously. Clark. Deal, he said, shaking her hands and then taking off his sweatshirt and giving it to her to cover herself, since they hadn't noticed the small detail that when she transformed, Alexia's clothes had burned, and when she returned to her human form, she was completely naked. 10 minutes later. Everyone could be seen arriving at the helicopter where Helena was waiting for them, and she was also surprised to see Alexia and Isay carrying Alfred's body. Helena. I see that everyone is fine, although there are things that you could explain to me, she said curiously. Issei. I must admit that this was a bit complicated, it was fun, and I'll gladly tell you what happened, but first let's get out of here, he said, somewhat tired. Helena. Sure, let's go home. So everyone boarded the helicopter to later take off into the air towards the United Unknown location. We see Biku and Cao Cao returning to their shelter while they were greeted by several people, especially a girl in a magical outfit. Lafay Biku, where is Nai-sama and Vali-san, she said confused while the two men lowered their heads in sadness. Bikula Lafay, Arthur died, he said with his head down. Lafay. Hey Biku, don't make these jokes, tell me where my brother is, she said with a broken voice, while trying not to cry. Cao Cao. I'm sorry, Maga, but it's the truth, Vali made a mistake, and your brother sacrificed himself to save him, losing his life in the process, he said, taking Arthur's sword and putting it in front of her. Lafay. No, this can't be true, my brother can't be dead, it has to be a lie, she screamed upset while crying, while people from the shelter tried to calm her down. Lavinia. And where is Vali, said a very beautiful woman. Cao Cao. Biku got angry and told him to leave because he had caused us great sorrows, including Arthur's death, he said seriously, looking at the woman. Lavinia. I see, I think it's for the best, she said a little sadly. Cao Cao. I'm sorry, I knew you liked it, he said more calmly. Lavinia. Now feelings don't matter, now the important thing is to survive, she said seriously. Cao Cao. You are right, we must survive. 8 hours later. The helicopter was flying over North Carolina, half an hour from Washington. Iseei was talking to Helena and explaining things to her. On the other hand, Jill and Claire were sleeping after what had happened, and Clark was watching Alexia, who was not separated from her brother. Helena. Seriously, she can transform into a bow, she said curiously while she secretly looked at Alexia. Issei. Yes, and I don't know what kind of virus creates those mutations, he said seriously. Helena. Let me guess, you'll ask for tests to be done to find out what's inside her, she said seriously. Issei. Exactly. Clark. It seems that they were very close, right? He said seriously, looking at the woman. Alexia. We were inseparable, even the virus in my body required me to be in cryogenization for 15 years, and during all that time he was taking care of me, she said sadly, caressing her face. Clark. Wow, he was a great brother, he said sadly for the woman. Alexia. You showed great hatred towards Wesker, who made you, she said curiously. Clark. He also killed my brother, he said sadly, lowering his head. Alexia. You too, she said surprised. Clark. That's right, it was a couple of years ago before all this madness began, my brother and I, along with a special team called Alpha Team, which also included Wesker and Jill. Our mission was to go to an abandoned mansion that belonged to the Spencer family, one of the founding families of Umbrella. During the mission, Wesker betrayed us and freed a bow known as Tyrant. We managed to defeat them, but when we were about to leave, Wesker appeared and tried to shoot me and killed my brother. He died protecting me, he said with his head down, as small tears fell down his face, and he clenched his fists in fury. Alexia. I see now, I understand your hatred, and I see that we both have the same desire, she said seriously. Clark. Of course, and I hope you put all your effort into fulfilling it, he said seriously. Alexia. Of course, and I expect the same from you, young Redfield, she said while the two smiled maliciously. Clark. Alexia. We will kill you, Albert Wesker. Seville, Spain. We can see a black-haired man with blonde locks looking from the top of a house on a hill, watching how the zombies were electrocuted by an electric fence. Azazel-sensei continues to contemplate death, said a girl in a wheelchair. Azazel. You're awake now, Irina, he said seriously. Irina. With those things I doubt I'll be able to sleep, she said calmly. Azazel. Yes, I think you're right, he said unconcerned. Irina. By the way, Penemu-sama is looking for you, she said seriously. Azazel. You know what he wants, he said seriously. Irina. I think he got a sample of a virus. Research. The team landed in Washington to be greeted by a group of soldiers armed and ready for anything. Alexia. What a nice welcome, don't you think? She said seriously. Issei. You know we have to take care of ourselves, right? He said seriously. Alexia. I already realize, she said with irony. Clark. Don't worry, Miss Ashford, when the recurrent tests are done, you will be able to stay without having a gun pointed at you, he said calmly. Alexia. Those tests will refer to the virus in my body, right? She said curiously. Clark. Yes, more or less, he said nonchalantly. Alexia. Well, who is the person I have to talk to? She said curiously. Shiva. We will tell you that later, but if you like to follow Miss Helena, she said seriously, pointing at the brunette. So the woman began to walk alongside the chestnut, escorted by all the soldiers. Clark. Seriously, don't you think it's excessive? he said seriously with his eyebrow raised. Shiva. I'm sorry but she could be a big threat, she said seriously. Issei. Anyway, we must continue with something more important, he said seriously. Claire. What are you talking about, Isay? What did you discover? She said curiously. Issei. When Alexia and I saw Wesker leaving in a helicopter with a rather strange logo, he said seriously. Jill. And what logo was it, or do you know what it is, she said curiously. Issei. Tricell Incorporated, he said seriously. Clark. It is more than obvious that he is associated with them, but what is it, he said seriously as they began to walk to a room with many computers. Jill. Do you think we can find something? She said seriously. Shiva. Yes, if it was an industry, there should be records on the internet, especially if some of it was in the USA, she said, typing the name on a computer. Issei. There is this one, he said, seeing the information that was thrown here. Tricell is a business conglomerate engaged in the transportation of materials, development of natural resources and production of pharmaceuticals. Tricell emerged in the so-called age of exploration when the company was spun out of Travis Trading, a company owned by a European merchant named Thomas Travis. This company benefited greatly from trade in the Middle East and laid the foundation for what would become Tricell's shipping division. By the early 19th century, Travis Trading was already a very powerful company in commercial shipping. At that time, Henry Travis, the youngest of the Travis family, invested part of the fortune in the exploration of Africa, inspired by the exploits of explorers such as David Livingstone. Issei. It's another damn pharmaceutical company, he said angrily. Clark. Now this makes it clear why Wesker is with them, but it doesn't explain what they are up to, he said seriously. Jill. It doesn't say who the current owner of the company is, she said curiously. Shiva. Yes, Iseei Hyoudou was a member of the Hyoudou family, which was well known and respected throughout Europe for its successful export and import business. Iseei had great beauty and an aristocratic attitude due to her upbringing, which made her look down on others, especially men. She spoke while showing the image of the woman. Issei. Wow, what's new, he said ironically. Shiva. Look, your grandmother, Virginia Hyoudou, was related to the Travis family, founders of the Tricell Pharmaceutical Company, giving Iseei a noble and illustrious lineage. Over time she became CEO of Tricell's African division, currently her location is unknown, she said seriously. Claire. Well, we already have part of the puzzle, now we have to find out what he does with Wesker and what he's up to, she said seriously. Issei. Yes, but before that we have to find her or him, he said seriously. Shiva. I don't see him as a big threat right now, or maybe, she said curiously. Clark. Wesker acting in the shadows is much more dangerous than if we knew his location, he said seriously. Jill. You're right about that. We need to start a search for Iseei and if possible find out where the Tricell labs are, she said seriously. Shiva. I understand, guys, now you can go rest, she said carefree. Issei. Well, we're leaving. So the boys left the room in different directions but in pairs. Issei. I'm sure you're okay, that thing didn't hurt you, he said worriedly. Claire. Yeah, don't worry, it just left a small mark on my chest, she said happily. Issei. Sure. Clark took Jill to the doctor, he said curiously. Claire. Yes, Issei, I'm fine. Don't worry, Jill, if she's sick, I could see that they experimented on her, but don't worry about me, she said, calming the boy. Issei. It's fine, he couldn't continue because he saw a strange light falling from the sky in the distance. Something like that. Claire. Issei, are you okay, she said confused, trying to get his attention. Issei. Draigg, that was it, he said nervously in his mind. Draigg. The Bifrost Bridge, he said in shock. Issei. Claire, come with me, he said, alarmed, starting to run. Claire. But what's going on? She said nervously, following him. Issei. Supernatural beings, he said seriously. Claire. Supernatural beings, she said confused. I see Asgardians. On the other hand. We see the black-haired man and the blonde walking while talking about trivial things. Jill. But seriously, Isay met two angels, she said curiously. Clark. Yes, of those who betrayed him, although I must admit that the angel was really pretty, he said thoughtfully. Jill. So then she was the most beautiful woman of all, she said jealously, starting to walk faster. Clark. Wait, hey, are you okay? He said confused, trying to reach the girl. Jill. Of course, why not? Because you better go look for that angel, she said jealously. Clark. Hey, calm down, she's beautiful, but she's not my type and she's crazy, he said nervously. Jill. Yeah, sure, and you tell me what kind of girls you like, as if I cared, she said, jealous and a little sad. Clark. Yes, maybe, but if they gave me the choice between her and you, it would be more than clear that it would be you, he said nervously. Jill. You say it, teach it, she couldn't finish because a girl interrupted them. Rebecca. Guys, I'm glad I found you, said a brunette girl. Jill. Chambers, what's going on, she said curiously. Rebecca. I need your help as well as Iseei, she said nervously. Clark. We just got back from Alaska and we need to rest, but tell us what's going on, he said curiously. Rebecca. Well, we know all the facts, but we know that a company similar to Umbrella created a new type of virus and was transporting it on a ship along the coast of Louisiana, but the ship crashed and we must look for the virus before a new outbreak occurs with an unknown virus, she said nervously. Clark. And what is that virus, he said curiously. Rebecca, it's the virus ERE-001. Retaliation. We see two chestnuts running quickly in one direction, one of them looked completely serious, while his companion looked confused without understanding what was happening. Draigg. Do you think they are Asgardians? He said seriously in the brown-haired boy's mind. Issei. Yes, without a doubt, that was the Bifrost Bridge, he said seriously. 10 minutes later. The chestnut trees reached the exact area where they had seen the lightning and could see how the fauna of the place was burned or broken, and in the middle of everything there was a circle marked on the ground as if it had been burned. Claire. Is this really happening? She said incredulously. Issei. Are you really surprised by this? We live in a world full of zombies and you don't believe this? He said with his eyebrow raised. Claire. Of course I'm not surprised, what's worse is that I can't believe they could get here, she said, pouting. Issei. Even if you don't believe it, it also surprises me, but knowing those idiots, anything is possible, he said seriously, checking the circle. Crack. The boys became alert when they heard a branch break, looking around until they saw a silhouette approaching and quickly recognized one of the two. Gondal. Iseei-san, it's really you, he said with shock in his voice, while his eyes filled with tears. Issei remained silent looking at the woman who could barely stand with multiple wounds and tiredness in her body, trying to get to where he was, but nothing seemed to matter to the boy who just remained standing. Clary. Issei, you know her, she said confused. Issei. She is a Valkyrie at the service of the old man Odin, he said turning around. Gondal. Iseei-san, please wait, he couldn't continue because the brown guy drew his gun pointing directly at his head. Issei. I don't care what reasons brought you here, Gondal, but you'd better get going, he said in a cold and cutting manner. Gondal. No, please Iseei-san, we need your help, please, he screamed in desperation. Issei. Haha, you're stupid if you think I'll help them, you're really crazy because of me, you, the old man and his whole world can go to hell, he said without looking at her, starting to walk. Gondal. Please, I beg you are our only salvation, he said with difficulty. Issei. Enough, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm not a god who can solve your problems every time you show your incompetence. I'm not a magical being who will appear and everything will be magically solved with my opinion. Think a little. The world went to shit. The factions are the same. There's nothing that can return everything to normal. And if there was one like the Holy Grail, it was destroyed in the war. Or did you forget? She said seriously. Gondal didn't say anything and remained silent while looking at the ground, sadly trying to hold back his tears, which made the Redfield feel a little sorry. Claire. Lady Valkyrie, how is the situation at your home? She said somewhat sadly. Gondal. Everything is desolate of life, most of Asgard's sniff is covered in zombies, only 20% of the population is left alive, but it is a combination of Asgardians and Yakais, he said with tears falling on his knees. Issei. So the Yakai sought refuge in Asgard, how interesting, he thought seriously. Claire. It must be hard to see your life change overnight, huh? She said curiously, watching the woman nod. Gondal. I never thought that something like this would happen to me, he said with tears. Issei. Were you hoping to see that stupid hacker Yuku marry Ross? He said coldly, leaving the woman silent. Gondal. No, I wanted to apologize to my little girl for ruining her life and seeing her be happy with the man she loved, but everything went to waste because of her damn beings, he said sadly clenching his fists. Issei. We agree on that, you ruined his life, he said angrily. Claire. Issei, please stop, she said something sad. Issei. I'm sorry Claire, but I can't feel sorry for someone like her, and I just hope that Ross is okay, but if something bad happens to him he better run because there won't be a kingdom where he can hide from me, and his head along with that old man's will be on my fireplace, he said seriously looking at the woman with disgust. Gondal. Kunu was infected, he said with difficulty. Issei, what happened and what did your stupid mother do? He shouted angrily, violently grabbing her by the neck. Gondal. She tried to leave the shelter with a desire to look for him after all everything I never stopped appreciating him, he said with difficulty because of the brown-haired boy's grip. Issei, what serious shout? Claire. Iseei, please let her go so I can answer you, I screamed worriedly. Issei. Fine, but he should answer, he said seriously, jumping over to the woman. Claire. Okay, now please answer that question, she said seriously. Andal. What happens is that 2 days ago Kunu refused to accept the idea that you were still alive, but she was attacked by a liquor and infected her. Yusaka was able to find her, but time has started to run out, he said with difficulty. Issei. And how much time does he have left, he said seriously. Andal. Exactly 3 days before he turns into a zombie, she said nervously. Claire. Issei, the infection is from a being with a T-virus. Issei. If you're right, I must act, he said seriously while looking at the brunette. Claire. What are you talking about? She said confused. I see. We'll go to Asgard. The pain of a dragon. After what the brown-haired man said, the two women were surprised, and the Valkyrie was extremely happy because peace could come to her home after so much death and destruction. Issei. But don't misinterpret things, Gondal, I'm only going for the girl, the others don't matter to me in the least, he said seriously, starting to walk. Gondal. But she couldn't finish because Claire knocked her out with a blow to the back of the neck. Claire. You better go to sleep for a while, she said calmly. Issei. Yes, I think so, he said seriously while carrying the woman. Claire. Issei, you really won't help them, she said curiously. Issei. No, he said simply as he continued walking. Claire. Because she said sadly for the boy. Issei. They asked for it, he said without looking at the brunette. Claire. Issei, you're not like that. 2 hours later. We can see Gondal waking up in a room with a bed and a small piece of furniture where there was a plate of food. Claire. I see you woke up, said the woman from the door seriously. Gondal. Where is Issei-san? She said confused. Claire. He's getting ready for the mission, but I want him to answer me something, she said seriously. Gondal. What a thing, she said confused. Claire. Because they betrayed Isay, she said seriously while the woman lowered her head. Gondal. Because they are stupid, he said without looking up. Claire. I want a real answer, she said seriously. Gondal. Well, that was a while ago now. Flashback. The war had ended, we had emerged victorious, and Rizavum had been killed, but not everything was happiness, since the pillar of the faction's Hyoudou Issei fell into a coma, and not only that, he had already lost the power of the Red Dragon Emperor by defeating the trihexa. Shortly after, we began to think that although the trihexa and Rizavum were no longer there could be future threats, and without the Securitate who would protect us, then all the leaders had the same idea. Azazel. How are you, Vali? He spoke seriously while the other leaders looked at him thoughtfully. Zeus. It wouldn't be a bad idea, besides he retains the power of the White Emperor. This time it was the leader of the Olympians who spoke. Surzich. If no one opposes Vali, Lucifer will be the new pillar of the factions, the Mao Lucifer sentenced. From that day on, the atmosphere among the leaders changed without knowing why. Everyone felt more arrogant and proud to the point that they decided to change what happened in the war, saying that they, along with Vali, were the ones who defeated the trihexa, leaving aside the true hero who even woke up from a coma, receiving news that would leave him devastated. Akeno. Hyoudou Isay, from now on you are expelled from all supernatural factions, and you will live your life in the human world. If we find out that you try to enter any of the factions, you will instantly become an S-rank criminal, and you will be hunted to death. This is spoken by one of the women who claimed to love him. Issei. But what do you mean, why are you doing this to me? He said it with such sadness while looking. Zenobia. Because you are no longer good for anything, you no longer contain the Red Emperor, so you are nothing more than a hindrance. The girl said this with so much disgust. I can't believe she once said she loved him. Thus the leaders and most of the women who claimed to love him showed their contempt by trampling on his pride and destroying all the feelings the boy felt for them, while Vali showed his superiority to the brown-haired boy. Vali. Nothing personal, Hyoudou, said the albino, throwing Isay into a portal that would take him to the human world. Rias. No, Isay, please, no, Isay. We could see how Miss Gremory along with the Nekomata sisters and my own granddaughter cried for not wanting to leave the young man like the others. No matter what had happened, they never stopped loving him. All this caused the Gremory heiress and company to lock themselves in the castle, and I received hatred from my granddaughter. Although I believed I was doing the right thing, the best for her well-being, I did not know that the decisions we made and supported would be the cause of leading our world to disaster and extinction when it all began. In flashback. Claire. When did that start? She asked confused. Fondle the infection. In another part of the base. We see Isay walking towards the infirmary while having a mental conversation with his dragon friend. Draigg. Are you sure about this? Said curiously. Issei. I don't know, but when have I been sure of something? He said something funny. Draigg. You know you can trust me, he said a little sadly. Issei. What are you talking about? He said, acting dumb. Draigg. Issei, you know that you can't hide anything from me. I know that it makes you feel bad knowing that you're going to see two leaders with Michael. You didn't have time to think about it since he appeared unexpectedly, but now you know that you're going to meet them. Your sadness is noticeable, he said with pity for his friend. Issei. I'm so obvious knowing that I'll see those two makes me feel a little bad, but this is also one more step to be able to see them, he said hopefully. Draigg. Yes, my friend, it is good that you do not lose hope, he said, recovering his spirit upon seeing his partner. Issei. Yes, mate, he said happily. Clark. Hey Isay, what's up, he said curiously watching the brown-haired boy in the infirmary hallway. Issei. I need your help, he said seriously looking at the boy and the blonde. Jill. What's wrong? She said curiously. Issei. I have to go save a girl, but it's in a very special place, he said seriously. Clark. Where do we have to go, he said curiously. Issei. To Asgard, he said calmly. Clark. Jill. Asgard, they screamed in surprise. Issei. That's right, but first we have to go see Alexia, he said seriously. Jill. For what? She said curiously. Issei. To make a cure. Underworld Gremory shelter. We can see Rias and her companions packing some things into backpacks being interrupted by the Mao Lucifer. Surzich. Rias, what do you think they're doing? He said seriously. Rias. It's not obvious, we're leaving here, she said seriously. Surzich. You're crazy, you could die, he said seriously and worried. Rias. We don't care, we can't stand being here anymore with the fall of that stupid barrier, we can go to the human world and look for Isay, she said seriously, while the others nodded. Surzich. It's crazy that makes you think he's alive, he said seriously. Rias. I don't care what you say, we feel it in our hearts, we know that he is alive, and no one will stop us, she said seriously while facing her brother. Surzich. I am your brother and you have to respect my authority, he said seriously. Rias. I already told you, you're not my brother, she said seriously, pushing the man while she and the others walked past him. Then Alana. Daughter, please, you will only risk your life in vain, she said with tears seeing the girl blocking the exit. Rias. Move Gremory matriarch, she said seriously. Then Alana. I am your mother and you have to respect me, she couldn't finish because Rias spoke and moved her with brute force. Rias. I don't have a mother. Lita Asgard. The agents were more than surprised to hear what the brown-haired boy had just said, it was no wonder he asked for their help to go to a supernatural realm. Issei. What do you say? He said curiously. Clark. Jill. We will do it, said determinedly. Issei. Perfect, we must prepare. The boys separated so they could get ready for the new mission that awaited them, since they would do it in unknown territory for most, and they did not know what kind of zombies they would face, but Isay not only went to prepare, he went to a certain place where he had someone locked up. Alexia. Oh, but if it's the young dragon, tell me what brings you here, she said seriously. Issei. There are still some processes missing so that I can be free under surveillance, but I need your help, he said seriously. Alexia. What do you need from me? She said seriously. Issei. I need a cure for the T-virus for a person who got infected, but there is still time before the infection occurs, he said seriously. Alexia. You could ask any scientist with the proper knowledge of the virus for that, why come to me, she said seriously. Issei. Because it is a supernatural being. Underworld city of Lilith. We see the Redeed with her three companions walking through the empty streets of Lilith very carefully and stealthily trying not to attract attention, since they could hear the different creatures that were there, and since they were demons they also had developed hearing. Rias. This place is no longer what it was, she said while looking at the place with some of its buildings in ruins. Koneko. But you look, she said while pointing in a direction seeing several humanoid lizard-like creatures devouring something. Rias. Isn't that from, she said bringing her hands to her mouth, seeing a piece of hair in the shape of a swirl where the creatures were. Kuroka. Ravel Phoenix said seriously as she watched the creatures feasting on what was left of the girl. Ross. Rias, I think being stealthy will no longer be a problem, she said nervously. Rias. Because she couldn't continue watching as three things on four legs that looked blind were around them. Rias. This just got interesting. Gremory Refugio. We see a brunette woman crying in her room while being watched by her son who couldn't do anything, making him feel helpless and frustrated since his entire family had almost completely fallen apart. Then Alana. How could I be so stupid, sniff, if only I had listened to Rias, sniff, our family would still be intact, she said while crying without holding anything back. Surzich. Ma, mother, and he couldn't continue because then Alana looked at him with hatred and started to speak. Then Alana. Shut up, I don't want to listen to you, you are the only one responsible, screams with hatred. Surzich. Mother, please, I know that I was the one who started with that stupidity of taking over Isay's achievements, and I know that I was the one who gave them the idea that Vali was better than Isay to be Ria's fiancé. Yes, I know that I am responsible for this, but please, if there was a way to remedy what I did, a way to fix it, I would do it, he said it sadly. Then Alana. But you can't, or you can, she said seriously while looking coldly at the Redeed. Surzich. Well, he said nervously. Then Alana. Of course you have nothing to excuse yourself with, you have always been a terrible leader, making the stupidest decisions and bragging about things you would never do. Come on, powerful hero who defeated the trihexa, go out, and all those things and save us, you can't because you are a fraud. A pathetic demon who stained the title of Lucifer with his cowardice and his despicable acts, she said with disgust and hatred, while Sirzich just lowered his head. Sirzich. What do you want me to do so you can forgive me? He said sadly while clenching his fists helplessly. Then Alana. Mort. Washington, D.C. base of the BSAA. We see Jill with Claire and the Valkyrie waiting for the boys, while Issei appeared with Alexia carrying a briefcase. Jill. What is she doing here? She said seriously. Issei. She is the only one capable of making a cure for a supernatural being in such a short time, he said seriously. Alexia. Don't worry, I'm on your side, she said amused. Issei. Where's Clark, he said seriously. Clark. Here I am, my friend. I picked up some babies that I had prepared for a special mission like this, he said seriously. Issei. Well, we're ready, what are you waiting for? He said coldly, looking at the Valkyrie who still hadn't gotten used to the tone the brown-haired boy was directing at her. Gondel. Okay, she said with her head down as she pulled out a sword. Everyone gathered around the woman as she thrust her sword into the ground, and a powerful ace of light formed around her, beginning to transport us to the Nordic kingdom. 2 minutes later. Quinte Bifrost Asgard. The boys appeared at the beginning or what little was left of the Rainbow Bridge watching, while most were surprised to see how they were on a floating bridge that led to space, but for Issei, it was sad to see how a magical kingdom like Asgard was now a place full of death and destruction. Claire. Issei, are you okay, she said curiously. Issei. Yes, don't worry, we have a mission, he said seriously as they began to walk. Claire. It's okay, she said a little worried. Issei. I can't believe how this ended. Odin's castle. We see the older yokai entering a room where a small yokai was seen breathing heavily while her eyes were closed. Isaka. Calm down, my little one, everything will be fine, you'll see, she said sadly, thinking that the little girl's hours were numbered. Kunu is, Issei-san. Louisiana, USA. We see Vali in a small boat arriving at a small pier, but he looked in terrible condition. Vali. Wow, this place looks disgusting, he said seriously while looking at the place. Albion. It suits you perfectly, he said in his mind with annoyance. Vali. Shut up, you only criticize instead of helping, he said annoyed. Albion. Sorry sir, I'm better than everyone, he said with disgust. Vali. He couldn't continue because something interrupted him. You will be part of my family. Sad reality. The boys walked through the empty streets of Asgard, guided by Gondel, who remained alert since he knew the horrors that his home held, especially when strange noises began to sound. Issei. They found us, he said seriously while Gondel began to tremble. Gondel. No, we are not that close, this can't end, she said nervously. Issei. Control yourself, you want to know how to handle these situations, he said seriously while activating his armor. Gondel. You don't understand, they are much stronger and more resistant than human zombies, she said nervously. Clark. We already had an idea, besides they are just zombies infected by the T-virus, the least dangerous of all, he said, seriously loading his weapon. Claire. We have faced worse things with more dangerous viruses, she said seriously while loading her weapon. Jill. Things that would make them pee their pants in fear, she said, remembering a certain beau she faced in Raccoon City. Alexia. Oh, have you ever seen something like me? She said as she took her virus form. Gondel. You are infected, she said nervously. Alexia. That's right, but I got infected myself, and I can control the virus in me, she said seriously. Issei. Stop talking, they're here, he said seriously. At that moment a rather large horde of Asgardian zombies began to come head-on towards them. Just imagine he's wearing Asgardian clothes. Issei. Let's have fun. Unknown location. We see the former terrorist shelter covered in blood and many cut and dismembered bodies, while Biku and Cao Cao stand as if nothing happened, but they no longer had heads, and now there was a strange kind of rare worms. Saddler. Excellent work, my cattle, let's return to our village, said the man while waving the cane. Salazar. Great idea, Saddler, although I regret not being able to find that albino who doesn't have an arm, said the dwarf, amused. Saddler. I appreciate it, but it doesn't matter, these two will be more than enough, he said seriously as he left the place with a little boy and the two boys turned into strange worm zombies. Everyone was leaving the place since it didn't seem like anyone was left alive, but what they didn't notice was that in a pile of corpses there was a blonde girl with a magician's hat who was slowly coming out of the corpses while carrying a very injured albino girl. The Fae. Come on, Lavinia-san, please hold on, she said while walking slowly in the opposite direction from where the bad guys had gone. Lavinia. Please, leave me here, I'm just dead. Wait, that will slow you down, she said with weakness and sadness. The Fae. No, Lavinia-san, we are friends and friends never abandon each other, she said while showing determination. Lavinia. Why are you doing this? She said sadly. The Fae. I have already lost most of the important people to me, and only you are left, and I don't plan on losing you, he said while not stopping his walk. Lavinia. Thank you. Asgard. We see the boys slowly advancing as they continue to shoot down the zombies, but they realize that these enemies were harder to take down. Claire. Does anyone have bullets? These things require more than 10 bullets to kill them completely, she said seriously while checking her cartridges. Jill. I'm not nearly there, she said seriously. Clark. Use these, he said throwing a couple of cartridges at him, but the bullets look different. Jill. Wait, these are them, she said incredulously. Clark. If you go rip, he said loading his gun with those bullets firing. At the moment of shooting they could see how a single bullet pierced the head of a zombie and made its head explode, killing it, leaving everyone surprised by the brutality of those bullets. Issei. It seems that those bullets were forbidden, where did you get them from? He said incredulously. Clark. I have contacts, he said calmly as he and the girls began shooting. Draigg. It's strange to see this kind of zombies trying to use magic, he said curiously watching how some zombies tried to cast magic but had no idea how to do it. Issei. That doesn't matter, we have to save her, he said seriously while crushing enemies without hesitation. Alexia. Miss Valkyrie, how much longer? She said seriously while throwing flames and hitting the zombies. Gondel. We are close now, we have to enter through this conduit since there is a barrier at the main entrance, she said nervously while activating her magic, breaking a magic seal in a tunnel. Issei. Come in quickly, he said seriously while covering his companion. Everyone entered while Alexia created a wall of fire allowing the chestnut to enter so that the Valkyrie could recreate the seal, preventing the zombies from passing. Issei. Well done guys, great job, he said calmly as his armor disappeared. Claire. Yes, it was fine, but bro, why didn't you use those bullets before, she said curiously looking at the black-haired man. Clark. I wanted to test the capabilities of the supernatural zombies with normal bullets, and the truth is that they surprised me more than I expected, he said, while everyone walked through the tunnel, managing to see the end. Gondel. We did it, he said happily. The group left the tunnel seeing a large room where there were some injured Asgardians and Valkyries helping them, but everyone was surprised to see a certain brown-haired man. Valkyrie 1. Gondel saw me return, she said, while several Valkyries went to see her. Asgardian 1. You saw its Hyoudou Isay, the Hyoudou, he said incredulously while more people were whispering. Asgardian 2. I can't believe it, I thought he was dead, said another without taking his eyes off the boy. Issei. Gondel, don't waste our time anymore, take us to the girl, he said seriously as he looked at the woman seriously. Auden. I'm glad to see you boy, he said with a big smile next to Yusaka. Issei didn't say anything, he just walked to where the two leaders were while looking at them with a cold and emotionless gaze, but smiling a few seconds later and then punching the old man in the face. Yusaka. Issei, what's wrong with you, he couldn't continue because the brown-haired boy slapped him, creating a deathly silence. Issei. Don't talk to me as if we were friends, I didn't come for you, I came for Kunu, he said seriously while looking at them coldly. Kunu I see, said the little girl from the entrance of the place in such a pitiful state that she couldn't hold on and fell. Issei. Kunu, he said as he ran to her and held her in his arms. Kunu. I knew that my hero was alive, she said with labored breathing while he was in her arms. Issei. Calm down, it will be okay now. Making things clear. The brown-haired boy slowly lifted the little yokai who couldn't stop sweating while the blonde looked at the scene with sadness and pain, knowing what she lost. Issei. Calm down little one, now everything will be fine, I'll take care of it, he said while walking to where his companions were. Auden. Boy, what he couldn't continue because Isay knocked him down with his hand. Issei. Alexia, do you think you can make the cure? He said seriously. Alexia. Of course I can, that's why I came, she said calmly while she took some blood from the girl. Why are you appearing now? Said an Asgardian lying on the floor. Issei. Excuse me, he said with a raised eyebrow as he left the girl on a table, letting Ashford work. Asgardian. Don't play dumb, Hyoudou, you were our hero, you were our hope, and when all this madness began, you abandoned us, you disappeared and left us to our fate, he said with annoyance, while other Asgardians and some other yokai looked at the brown-haired man with hatred. Issei. Ha 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 ha, but what a good joke, the truth is very good, do you really think I abandoned you, do you really think I left you alone, please after so much time you haven't told them the truth, seriously you disgust me, he said with annoyance looking at the two leaders who only lowered their heads. Yokai. What are you talking about? One of the angry men shouted. Issei. What am I talking about? Well, a while ago after the defeat of the trihexa, I was in a coma and after a few months I found out that the leaders took credit for the victory and since the power of the Red Dragon Emperor could not be felt in me. It was easy for them to get rid of me by throwing me into the human world to my fate and taking me away from the women I love most in this world, he said in a cold voice while looking at the leaders and some people opened their eyes in shock. Valkyrie. It's a lie, Oden-sama could never do such a thing, she shouted indignantly while others supported her. Yakai. She's right, Yusaka-sama would never do something so vile, stop lying, Sekiryu said a very upset woman. Issei. Do you really believe it? Come on, talk, don't stay quiet. Look at your people and tell them that what I said was a lie, that you did beat the trihexa and that you didn't leave me to my fate. Come on, tell them, he shouted furiously while hitting a wall and staring at the two leaders. After what the brown-haired boy said, a silence formed while the two leaders just remained with their heads down. Issei. Come on, talk, repeat every damn word that exiled me from the factions, he said while clenching his fists and his booster gear activated. Clark. Issei, calm down, you will enter Juggernaut drive mode and you know that this is detrimental to the mission and to the plans to go to the Underworld, he said seriously while holding his shoulder. Issei. Okay, he said as his gauntlet disappeared. Alexia. The cure is ready, she said seriously while taking a syringe. Isaka. Can you save my son, couldn't continue because the brown-haired boy spoke. Issei. Shut up, you don't deserve to be called my daughter, you don't even deserve to be a mother, because of your stupidity, your daughter ended up in this situation, and that's why I'm taking her, she'll be better off with me, he said coldly. Isaka. You can't do that, she's my daughter, she couldn't continue because now it was the same Kunu who interrupted her. Kunu. I'll go with Isay-san, she said weakly while the woman gave her the cure. Isaka. Boo, but Kunu, she said with a pain in her chest and wanting to cry. Issei. The girl decided, so don't get involved, he said with annoyance while turning his back on the woman. Auden. Boy, please wait, we need your help, he couldn't continue because Isay looked at him with a smile. Issei. Listen to me and do it right. I'm no longer a hero to you and I'm not going to help you either. You don't interest me in the slightest, he said seriously while holding his things. Gondel. Please Isay-san, we need you to help us, he said nervously. Issei. Enough, Gondel, understand once and for all that the world is not all factions have gone to shit, there is nothing I can do now, what everyone has to do is find a way to survive here, there are no more heroes or villains, there are only survivors, he said with annoyance looking at everyone. Gondel. But then how do you explain that humans have different locations where civilizations seem to be as they were before this chaos? Can't you do this? She said seriously while everyone looked at the brown-haired man. Issei. I didn't do anything, but you want to know why this happened so easily. We humans don't just stand there like a bunch of incompetents who put ourselves in the hands of a pathetic leader. We fight and strive daily to overcome adversity because throughout history we have always done so. We never had the support of magic or any of those things. We always go through difficult times. It's in our DNA. He said seriously as he carried the little girl on his back and his companions began to walk to the exit. Isaka. Please, Kunu, think again, I beg you, we must stay together, she said on the verge of tears. Kunu didn't say anything and just hugged the brunette tighter, causing the older Yakai's heart to break into pieces as the brunette continued walking, while the Yakai and Asgardians looked at them sadly since they already knew the truth and it hurt them to know that they were deceived by the wisest beings of their factions. Issei. If it helps, the barrier between the factions fell so you can go to another one for help, he said seriously as they left through the tunnel where they had entered. Thus the Hesikos left the place, which was left in a brutal silence while Yusaka began to cry and the remaining Asgardians and Yakai looked at their leaders with disappointment and shame. Auden. Issei, I hope one day you forgive us. How things are. We could see how the brown-haired boy and his group came out of the tunnel, seeing the desolate landscape as they began to walk, seeing how some zombies were still being consumed by the fire created by them before entering. Clark. Dude, are you okay? He said curiously looking at the brown-haired boy. Issei. The truth is that it bothered me a little that those idiots claimed me as if they had the right and more so those damn cowards who didn't have the balls to speak, he said with some anger. Clark. Do you think things are similar in the other factions? He said seriously. Issei. It is most likely that those cowards would not be able to speak the truth, he said seriously as they continued their walk. Alexia. Those two are very close, she said thoughtfully while looking at them from behind. Claire. You're right, ever since they met they have become an unstoppable team, they have never failed a mission, she said as she followed in his footsteps. Alexia. I see, but it seems that Hyoudou has suffered a lot because of the supernatural being, she said nervously. Jill. You were there, you couldn't see how they kept their achievement and threw it away like simple garbage, they are miserable, she said with some annoyance. Alexia. And to think that they classified us as the weakest race, but just by seeing how the Asgardians ended up, it's easy to think that the other races ended up the same or worse, she said, while slowly looking at the landscape full of sadness and death. Kunu. Issei-san, I'm very happy that you're alive, she said as she slowly opened her eyes. Isay. I see that you are better now, but don't try too hard, you are not at your best yet, he said while smiling. Kunu. Issei-san, where have you been all this time, she said curiously. Isay. Well, I was going from one place to another helping my people with the infection, fighting, saving people, I did many things, he said with the cheerful attitude he showed in the past. Kunu. I see, he's still a hero, she said while hugging the brown-haired boy tightly. Issei. Yes, haha, hero. Louisiana, location unknown. We can see a silver-haired man tied to a chair while he was unconscious, but it didn't last long as he slowly began to wake up, realizing that he was in a dining room in front of a large table with disgusting food and that it seemed to be in a state of decomposition, and he also realized that he was not alone, as there were 3 people with unpleasant and somewhat terrifying appearances. Ollie. Who are you? Where am I? What is this place? He said nervously while trying to get up. Oh, what a noisy brat, shut up, said the one who seemed to be the father of the family, who took a piece of food and put it in his throat. Ollie. Cough cough Puig, what do you want from me, he said with disgust in his mouth after having that in his mouth. It's not what we want, it's what our little girl wants, said the woman while smiling in a sinister way. Ollie. Albion, help me, he thought in his head while struggling to free himself. Albion. It's your problem, stupid brat, leave me alone, he replied in his head. Stay still or she'll get angry, said the last of the family members, slapping the silver-haired boy. Vali Ishi, he said nervously. Lucas, stop bothering him, said a female voice behind Vali as the 3 family members settled into their chairs and bowed their heads. Lucas, hello Evelyn, they said scared. Evelyn. Hello, said a black-haired girl with pale skin appearing in front of Vali. Vali. You're Evelyn, he said scared since at first glance the girl gave off a creepy aura. Evelyn. That's right, and now you are part of this family, welcome brother. Underworld. We see Rias and her small group walking on the outskirts of the city covered in blood and with clear tired faces after having fought against many infected, but they showed great determination as they continued forward. Rias. We're almost there, girls. This is the place where it's easiest to go from one kingdom to another, she said while sitting on the floor. Ross. Rias, do you think we can get to the human world from here? She said tiredly. Rias. Yes, we just need to rest a little, and when we are recovered, we will use all our magic to be able to leave here, she said calmly. Kuroka. We will soon return to the human world and we can look for Isay, she said happily while hugging her sister. Kenu. We will return with Senpai soon, but the planet is big where we should search, she said curiously. Rias. That's the least important thing now, we must concentrate on returning to the human world, she said calmly. Rafia. You won't make it alone, she said seriously appearing behind them. Rias. What are you doing here? She said angrily facing her sister-in-law. Rafia. I came to, she couldn't continue because Kuroka interrupted her. Kuroka. Most likely her pathetic husband sent her to take us back, she said with disgust. Rafia. Of course not, I want to help them, she said something sad. Ross. Yes, of course, why not? What makes you think we'll believe you? He said seriously. Rafia. I know you hate me, I know I supported Surzich in his decisions, but I'm not here to play the victim, I just want you to understand that without my help, you don't have enough power for the 4 of you to leave, only one of you could leave, at most 2, but nothing more, she said seriously while the girls were thinking. Rias. Okay, let's say we believe you, now tell us what you gain from this, she said seriously. Radia. Nothing, I just think that helping them is something that my little one would have wanted, she said while looking at the sky and shedding a few tears. Rias. Okay, you can help us. Seville, Spain. We can see Azazel with Penemu and Irina while he was talking very interested with a woman who was holding a formula and smiling at the fallen who had placed their hopes in her. Irina. Then I can get my legs back, she said with emotion. Of course the C virus is the answer to all your problems, she said calmly. Penemu. I believe in your word, she said seriously. Then we have a deal, he said stretching out his hand. Azazel, of course, Ada Wong. A matter of focus. We can see Rias and her group ready to start the spell to be able to return to the human world with the help of Grafia, but they had to act quickly since the spell would be very striking and could attract the infected, and not only that, it would also take them to the human world. Rias. The time has come, remember we have to be fast or there will be serious consequences, she said seriously while the others nodded. Koneko. By the way, but if this works, where will we appear? She said doubtfully. Rias. I don't know for sure, but it's possible that we meet on the outskirts of Ku, she said it very thoughtfully. Ross. At least it's close to where we lived, she said thoughtfully. Rafia. We must not waste time, we must act, she said seriously. Rias. If you're right, we have to do it, she said determinedly. Thus the 5 women placed themselves in the shape of a star beginning to raise their auras, while a large magic circle with a Gremory symbol appeared on the ground after being completed. It shot a ray of light into the sky that was visible for miles, causing many creatures to begin to run towards it. Rafia. Good, it's ready now, enter one by one, so that the circle doesn't lose strength. First your Koneko, she said seriously, while the albino nodded and broke the formation, entering the circle, disappearing in seconds. Rias. It worked, she said hopefully. Rafia. Yes, but let's not waste time. Ross, you're next, she said seriously, while the silver-haired girl nodded. Kuroka. TSK damn, said with frustration. Rias. What's happening? She said nervously. Kuroka. I can hear them getting closer, she said nervously. Rafia. Yes, I feared it, don't lose your calm, Kuroka, you go, she said seriously, while the brunette hesitated for a few seconds, but then entered it. Rias. TSK ma damn, this is getting complicated, she said nervously as she began to feel a great pressure on her body. Rafia. Yes, I know, but it's not time to complain, it's your turn. Come on, I'll hold on, don't worry, go ahead, she said seriously. Rias. Yes, and thank you, she said with a little sadness. Rafia. You don't have to thank her, go on, find your happiness and laugh, tell Issei that I'm sorry, she said calmly while watching how the Redeed was about to enter the circle. Better tell him personally, said a person behind. Rias and Rafia began to be teleported, but they managed to see Venilana, who kept the circle activated, but before leaving completely, they could see how the brunette was being surrounded by the creatures, but she maintained a calm smile. Rias, Rafia, mama Venilana, they screamed as they disappeared completely. Venilana. I hope they can be happy. Outskirts of Ku. We can see how the girls appeared near a wooded area, but they quickly realized that they were surrounded by a group of armed people, but leading all the people they could see a brunette girl who somehow seemed familiar to them. Rias. Stop, don't shoot, she said nervously. Murayama. Rias Gremory, this is included. Rias. Murayama, is you said the same as the brunette. Murayama. Yes, this is incredible, how did they get here? She said incredulously. Rias. It's a long story, I speak with sadness. Murayama. I understand, guys, calm down, they are known, he said raising his fists while the soldiers lowered their weapons. Ross. I'm surprised to see one of the former girls from the academy around here, she said curiously. Murayama. Same here, Ross-sensei, he said nostalgically as they walked to a military base. Koneko. Murayama-san, you met someone who was at the academy at this time, she said curiously, while the brunette put on a somewhat sad face. Murayama. Yes, I have seen some turned into zombies, I even had to end Cadis's life, they will remember her, my best friend, because she was infected and asked me to take her life before seeing her as one of those things. Even Mitsuda, one of Issei's perverted friends, saved my life by giving his life in exchange, who would have thought? Now I feel so guilty for all the times I hit him with the kendo club, she said, while a few tears fell down her cheek. Rias. Calm down, this damn apocalypse has taken away some of our loved ones, it's normal to feel sad, she said while hugging the brunette who began to cry on her shoulder. Murayama. I know, sniff, but it hurts, remember, but calm down, I'm fine now, tell me, what are you doing in this place? As far as I know, you were trapped in the underworld, she said while recovering and wiping away her tears. Rias. Well, we found a way out since we want to look for Issei, she said determinedly. Murayama. I see, and I'm sorry to tell you that you are quite far from, she said seriously. Rias. What the wait a second, you know where it is, can you tell us, she said with emotion like the girls. Murayama. Sure, but I want one thing in return, she said seriously. Rias. What a thing, she said curiously. Murayama. I'll also go with you. Washington, D.C. outside the BSAA. We can see how Issei and company appeared back in their world with a little yokai on the brown-haired boy's back who, seeing that they were now in the human world, hid his yokai traces, which surprised Alexia, but she remained quiet. Issei. Well, Kunu, we're here. This will be your new home, he said while the little girl looked at the base. Kunu. This is impressive, she said amazed. Issei. I'm glad you like it, and wait until you meet Sherry, a girl your age who looks a lot like you, he said happily. Kunu. I really can't wait, she said happily. Issei. If only they got along really well. He couldn't continue because Shelva appeared running. Shiva. Where the hell did you guys go? We're in a serious situation, she said upset. Issei. Hey, relax, we had an urgent matter to attend to, she said seriously. Shiva. You know I don't care, I need all 4 of you to come quickly, she said seriously. Issei. Okay, let's go. BSAA, Washington Central. We can see several monitors with darkened people as they watched Selva and the Issei group, who remained serious but did not seem to be frightened by the beings that were on the screens. Gentlemen, you understand the situation you are in at such a tense moment like this, and you along with agents Valentine and Redfield disappear without saying anything is a clear violation of the BSAA code, said one of the people, quite angry. Issei. I know that our way of acting was not correct, but it was a situation that we had to attend to urgently, he said seriously. You and I must assume that this matter has to do with that girl who is with you, young Hyoudou, another serious voice said. Issei. Yes, but that's all I'm going to say, he said seriously. Their behavior is in a childish way makes us take the decision to expel them from the BSAA. Are you aware of that? He said seriously. Issei. I recognize that the council made that decision, but have you thought about the consequences of that action? Expelling the two of us doesn't only mean dismissing us, but also Jill and Claire. In short, you lose 4 agents who, so to speak, are the best. Tell me what mission we haven't accomplished, he said seriously. The people on the screens looked at each other without arguing anything, since what Isay said was true. There were no better agents than them, and expelling them from the agency was practically shooting themselves in the leg, and they couldn't afford to lose them. Clark. By the way, what is this situation that they talk so much about? He said seriously, capturing everyone's attention. Omar said seriously. Shiva. Yes sir, a few months ago a cargo ship ran aground on the coast of Louisiana, and this caused the sudden appearance of a strange mold. In addition to the zombies in the area began to disappear. At the same time, after investigations, it was discovered that the ship contained a new biological entity known as Evelyn. We do not know what it is, but it is the cause of this. In the files it is said that it is extremely dangerous. At the same time that you disappeared, Agent Rebecca Chambers and a group of agents went in search of said agent, but all traces of communication were lost, and this was the last thing we received, she said, showing a photo. Shiva. We don't know what it is, and we fear the worst for the agent, she said heavily. Issei. We will take care of it, he said seriously. What are you talking about? He said seriously. Issei. It's not obvious. We will complete this mission, we will calm the fear that this biological agent generates in them, and thus we will fix our mistake. Everyone wins, only the 4 of us will go, and Alexia, I feel that we will need her for this mission, she said seriously. Do okay, but if you fail, you'll be out of the BSAA. We have a deal, she said seriously. Issei. Deal. Omen. We see Isay walking calmly through the hallways of a building with several apartments in the company of Kunu, who wouldn't let go of him for anything in the world until they both stopped at a door where the brown-haired boy knocked a couple of times and seconds later was greeted by a blonde girl. Sherry. Issei Hyoudou, she said happily, hugging the brown-haired boy. Issei. Hi Sherry, I'm glad to see you too, he said, reciprocating the hug. Sherry. What brings you here? She said happily. Issei. Well, I have a mission and I don't know how long it will last, but I want you to take care of a little person who is like a daughter to me, isn't that true, Kunu? He said with a smile as he stepped aside, revealing the little girl who looked embarrassed. Sherry. But how pretty, she said curiously. Kunu. It's a pleasure, she said, making a small bow. Sherry. Wow, I have a sister, she said excitedly while holding the other blonde's hands. Issei. I'm glad the 2 of them get along, please Sherry take care of her, he said seriously. Sherry. Yes, I will take care of my sister, she said very happily. Issei. See you later, he said as he left. 20 minutes later. We can see Isay in front of a helicopter ready to set sail while he waited for his other companions who slowly began to arrive. Only Clark was missing, who had the order to watch over Alexia. Issei. Don't you think that arriving by helicopter wouldn't attract a lot of attention? He said curiously. Jill. We will not go to Louisiana, it will only take us to one of our fleets that is in the Gulf of Mexico. There we will take a boat that will take us to the shores of Dulvey where all this disaster is happening, she said seriously. Claire. The truth is that I'm a little worried about the fact that there's a new type of virus and we don't know what it can do at all, she said nervously. Clark. It's the same as always, we were never prepared to face the viruses and the creatures they create, it will be like going back to the beginning, he said while appearing next to Ashford. Issei. Always calm, right, friend, he said while lifting his backpack. Clark. You already know me, although we must keep in mind that the most dangerous thing about this mission is this biological entity, since every time we face the original carrier of the virus, it is a real headache, whether it is Alexia with her virus, Nemesis with his strange parasite, Dr. Birkin with his G-virus, I better not even talk about it, he said with a drop of sweat on his neck. Issei. It's true that being could be the problem. Ulvilusanana. We can see a pale-skinned, black-haired girl brushing a doll while looking at a drawing that had her and 2 people with the names of dad and mom, while feeling deep sadness and anger because something was bothering her. Evelyn. Because this is not a family like the one I want, she said while throwing the brush to the floor. Mrs. Baker. Evelyn, are you okay? She said nervously from the door of the room. Evelyn. Leave me alone, what did I told you about bothering me? She shouted angrily as the mold on the walls began to grow, causing the woman to run downstairs. Bali, he's acting like a genius again, he said annoyed. Mr. Baker. Shut up for hours or he'll kill us all, he said, slapping him. Bali. I'm not going to shut up, you guys are embarrassing to let yourselves be manipulated by a stupid brat, you don't, he couldn't continue because the Bakers lowered their heads in fear. Evelyn. It seems like you don't want to learn, right? 2 days later. BSAA, Japan airport. We can see a group of girls walking towards the plane while the excitement was seen on their faces since they already knew that Isay was safe and sound, and they were also surprised to learn that he was an agent who faced the creatures created by the viruses and that he was in the USA. Rias. I can't believe we'll be able to see Isay again, she said with emotion. Koneko. Yes, and senpai is still that good person who helps others and fights to save the innocent, she said happily. Kuroka. Although I'm surprised that he's in the United States, she said curiously. Ross. That doesn't matter, what matters is that we will be able to see him again, she said excitedly. Rafia. Issei-sama, I will be able to see him and apologize for my action, she thought happily. Murayaba. Okay, it's time to leave. They're ready, he said looking at the 5 women. Gremory CEE. Seville, Spain. We can see a large group of humans and a small number of fallen who looked at Azazel and Ada Wong, who looked at each other with a big smile, being interrupted by a brunette who was very happy now that she had recovered her legs. Arena. We are ready, Miss Wong, she said calmly. Ada. Perfect, we will attack the BSAA headquarters in Washington, she said seriously. Azazel. But do you really think we'll find all the viruses in that place? He said curiously. Ada. Of course, even though the organization is worldwide, the people who pull the strings are North Americans, and they will never let another country have such dangerous weapons, she said seriously. Azazel. In that case, prepare everything and we will go to Washington. Gulf of Mexico. We could see a small boat sailing through the ocean towards a coast that looked somewhat gloomy, but they could see a large abandoned boat, but it was covered in mold, but they could see that it was possible to climb on it. Clark. I think we should investigate, he said seriously while everyone got ready. Issei. I've never seen a place as strange as this, he said curiously. Alexia. Young Isay, could you tell me where on this planet it is not strange after the apocalypse, she said curiously. Issei. You're right, but we have to get ready anyway. We don't know what awaits us inside, he said seriously. A place somewhat far from your position. We see Evelyn, who stopped playing with volley and smiled in a somewhat funny but also sadistic way while slowly closing her eyes. Evelyn. More family just arrived. What is Evelyn? We can see the entire BSAA squad boarding the abandoned boat, trying to be careful to avoid surprises, but it seemed to be completely empty, but from their experience, they knew that was not a good sign, so they prepared for everything. Issei. Alerts, he said seriously while everyone nodded. Alexia. What a strange place but at the same time fascinating, she said curiously while she cut her hand a little, creating fire with her blood. Jill. Wow, the place is more gloomy with the light, she said seriously. Claire. Yes, and that strange mold doesn't help in the least, she said seriously. Clark. I think the mold is not just there to make the environment more gloomy, he said somewhat tensely. Issei. Why do you say so? He said while everyone looked at them. Clark. Because it's moving, he said seriously watching as a creature began to form from the mold. Issei. This is going to get ugly. Baker House. We see Evelyn sitting on the roof of the residence while looking into the distance at the ship on which the agents were, beginning to smile as she sees some flashes of light, accompanied by slight explosion noises. Evelyn. There will be more families soon, she said happily while not noticing that an albino was looking at her with hatred from below. Lucas. What are you doing, idiot? You're going to make him angry, he said, annoyed. Ollie. Aren't you really tired of always obeying her orders? She's just a damn girl, he said angrily. Mrs. Baker. You don't want to learn, she has us in her power, we can't do anything, she said scared. Ollie. They don't understand, we can be free, we just need to unite, she is nothing without us, and we can easily crush her, he said seriously, while his arm mutated into a kind of blade similar to that of the plagues. Mr. Baker. How can you do that? She wouldn't allow it, he said incredulously. Ollie, I'm in control. Back to the boat. We can see Isay and the others running through the ship's corridors while trying to knock down the different mold creatures that seemed to have no end due to the excessive amount of substance that was on the ship, and more so now that another type of larger creatures appeared that spit out an unpleasant liquid that clashed with the powerful flames of Alexia. Issei. Well, we can't say that this mission is boring, right, he said reloading his weapon. Clark. You really feel like joking now, he said while firing a couple of shots. Jill. Guys, look at that, she said confused, pointing to a strange sphere of mold where you could see a human hand that was slowly being absorbed by the mold. Claire. He could be a survivor, he said while running towards her. Issei. Take care of getting him out of there, we will stop them, he said seriously, while together with Clark and Alexia they stopped the creatures. The two girls quickly used their knives to cut all the mold to remove it from the person, realizing that it was not a man, but a woman who was also their own partner who seemed to be unconscious. Claire. It's Agent Chambers, she said nervously, trying to make her react. Jill. Come on Rebecca, react, she said, taking out some alcohol. Clark. This is not a place to check it out, let's go through that door, he said, kicking it and giving way to the others until everyone entered. Issei. Damn, we haven't encountered the biological weapon yet, and their damn lackeys are already making things difficult for us, he said, frustrated as he and his partner used some furniture to block the entrance. Clark. At least we have a little respite, he said calmly. Alexia. Let me check her, lay her down on the couch, she said calmly while the two girls listened. Jill. What is this place? She said, looking at the somewhat messy room with papers on the floor. Claire. I don't know, maybe it was just a normal guest room and they panicked because of those things, although it's strange that there are no traces of mold, she said curiously. Clark. This is it, he said in amazement. Issei. What did you find? He said curiously while his friend lifted a paper. Clark. Evelyn, codename E001, a genetically altered being from its embryonic stage, thanks to the advanced discovery of a vicariously evolved fungus codenamed Mutamycosa, introduced into the human embryo and cultivated in a controlled state of between 38 and 40 weeks, the equivalent of the development period of a human baby. Evelyn is a product created from a group of specimens from Series A to D catalogued as failures, but of the specimens from Series E, one resulted in a resounding success, the biological entity known as Evelyn, whose appearance is that of a 10-year-old girl with white skin and black hair. Purpose. This biological entity was created in order to be able to infiltrate enemy lines and go unnoticed, hence the infantry appearance, which is the least expected for a biological weapon. Abilities. The results with Evelyn were surprising since she can secrete a strange black substance similar to mold that was later discovered to be Mutamycosa, with the ability to control any being that comes into contact with it, causing different disorders in the infected. The first would be hallucinations of the biological entity, without the need for it to be present, causing dementia. Madness among others, but only the infected can see the entity. Also, the infected begin to cover themselves with mold that feeds on nutrients, in addition to providing the infected with great physical abilities, in addition to an amazing regeneration even of wounds that would mean death, and when the control of the mold is completed throughout the body, this causes the human form to be lost, turning them into aberrations. Finally, Evelyn has the ability to create strange creatures created by an excessive amount of mold. Latest report. Things have gone wrong for the company, our rival Tricell is about to find out our plans, so the decision was made to move Evelyn to a headquarters in South America. The mission will be carried out by Alan Drenay and Evelyn's caregiver Mia Winters, posing as a family. If things get worse, they have the mission of eliminating Evelyn. The black-haired man finished speaking, leaving the sheet of paper on a piece of furniture, but not before showing an image of the girl. Issei. So the mission failed and they couldn't eliminate Evelyn, he said curiously. Claire. So we already know that we have to look for a girl, and we have to wear masks for safety, she said seriously. Jill. If you're right, you couldn't continue because something happened. Rebecca, please don't leave me, she screamed upset. Issei. Rebecca, please calm down, he said upset, holding the girl. Rebecca. No, she will kill us all, and she is here, she screamed terrified, pointing in a direction where there was nothing. Issei. Please calm down, there's no one here. He couldn't continue because Clark hit the woman in the back of the neck, leaving her unconscious. Jill. Why did you do that? She said confused. Clark. She's infected, he said seriously while putting on his mask. Claire. That means, she said nervously. Clark. He knows we're here, he said nervously. Alexia. It would be best to get out of here as soon as possible, she said seriously, taking her infected form, creating a mask with her plants. Jill. But where are we going? We have to finish the mission, she said seriously. Issei. We'll go to that house. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.